Hi, everyone. John Adkison. I am doing another interview uh, for the Circumcision Harms docu-series I'm putting together. And I have Sarah with me today to interview. And Sarah, please introduce yourself and tell us how you got here.
All right, my name is Sarah. I'm 29 years old. I live in southern Wisconsin. I have two children. They are 4, and my son, is youngest. He's going to turn 2 in March. I did not get into this on purpose. I actually had no idea what any of this existed of at all. About 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago now. And it all was from an activist post on Facebook. So yeah, I was scrolling, and I was due with my son in 6 weeks. Never thought a thing about circumcision before. Sitting there scrolling on Facebook, saw something anti-circumcision. I don't even remember what it was, but it was from Your Whole Baby.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about if I have a boy, we'll probably have to circumcise him. And I was like, ooh, I don't know. I've never thought about this before. So I went and asked my husband. I was like, if we have a boy, are we going to be circumcising? And he was like, no. And then it was like, so that's it.
Y-
And I was like, okay. So, and it really shocked me, because he's circumcised and I don't, oh, that's just what you do.
Oh.
So I was shocked. I was honestly really, really shocked. So then that's where I started my research,
Mhm.
and yeah, I'm here now. But it's been a long road, and I'm never gonna give up now.
I hear you. And I've seen you on all sorts of social media, and I see you're wearing a Bloodstained Men T-shirt. You want to show it to everyone? It's
Betcha.
yeah, and then the back of it,
The back
the
of it, intact
eh,
genitals are human right.
woohoo, bloodstainedmen.com. That's an excellent shirt.
I
I'm
love it.
I'm envious. I've got if you've watched my videos, you'll see I've got like 5 or 6 different shirts, including Your Whole Baby, Bloodstained Men, Intaction, and the Genital Autonomy America T-shirt. So
And they're all so important. They all
yes,
lead you
yes,
to a great place.
excellent organizations. So yeah, it's great. It's great to have you here with me, Sarah.
Super excited to be
Um,
talking with you, John.
you and I have done all sorts of things on Twitter and TikTok and this time we get to meet and face to face. This is great.
Yeah, I talk about, some of the things I do with some of the people that I trust and who know, that I'm into this, and your name comes up often, and I tell them how, we're in with, like, there's certain groups of people that, just get to know each other really, really well. And I'm really
Yeah,
grateful for that. I feel as I've found my people for sure.
yeah, yeah. It's really nice to have these kind of connections and support each other for this. I sometimes compare it to like going off to war, and having your fellow teammates, fighting together.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
You Yeah. And you were talking about how this intactivism or advocacy for genital autonomy. I really hate the anti-circumcision thing, but it's
Yeah.
like something that chose us, right? We didn't exactly choose to jump into this battle.
Right, right, especially with all, like, the anger that you get for it, like, people the backlash, all the people that turn on you for it and
Mhm.
disown you for it, and it's like you still can't, it's like, it doesn't even matter, you can't stop. It's like, "Well, I can't stop just because you don't like me for it, I can't stop."
Yeah, yeah. When you realize the harm that is done, and that's what we're trying to talk about here in this interview, is that it's very harmful, and a lot of people want to deny that or whatever. But we've done our research, and it's clear as mud, or clear as day that it's definitely harmful. So
Right, don't need I always say, "You don't need a textbook to know these things." I mean, you just
no,
need to know one person who's like, "What are you talking about, circumcised? Why would you ever do that?" And then that should
yeah.
be that should be it right there.
Yeah, you talk to someone, particularly outside of the United States, in Europe or South America, or pretty much any of the Hispanic cultures. None of them do it. China, Russia. yeah, it's just they're like, what? They do that over there? It's like us saying, us realizing over there in Egypt or somewhere else in Africa, they cut little girls' genitalia.
Malaysia.
What?
Yeah.
Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? But then you start seeing people over there talk about it. If you look at some of the documentaries on it, it's like, yeah, it's as common and normal and okay for them to do that as the people in the United States that think it's okay to cut male genitalia.
With the same response as like, I'm fine, I turned out fine, and it's for the better. With the same response, it's the exact same thing, different gender.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. It's the same exact excuses and all that. So anyways, well, so I have a list of topics I try to cover, and here's the main big list. Starting off with the physical harms of cutting genitalia, and this is focused on male genital cutting. Um, Later on, we talk about female too. Um, and then there's, because of the physical harms that are done, how it affects sexual partners, when you're having sexual acts. And due to that, we dig into the psychological impacts, not just of the person that's been cut, but everyone that's impacted by this one way or another. The parents, the we could talk about friends and family and aunts and uncles or whatever you want to talk about. It affects, it touches pretty much everyone one way or another.
Mhm.
And that also covers the relationships too. It interferes with relationships like co-parenting, child-parent trust, et cetera, et cetera. And after we get through all that, we jump into the female circumcision side of it. Most people might have heard it, particularly in the United States, as FGM, or female genital mutilation. In the US, it was even called female circumcision at one time. They kind of changed the language in the later 90s and got it outlawed, and press got onto it and started calling it FGM, and continued to call male circumcision male circumcision. Um, and then the very last item is, we'll talk a little bit about how it affects social productivity. So starting off with the physical part, I've got my mock penis here. I don't know if you've seen any of my videos of me using it yet.
I
Oh,
don't think I have.
really? Check this out. Check this out.
Oh my God, it's awesome. It's like
All right.
perfect.
There's the frenulum right there, right?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yep.
That's perfect.
I'm jealous of my friend Mitchell. He got one of these when they were still available. The person that was doing them has kind of disappeared on us, but he got one that was colored like the Sorrells study. So you can see the
The
different, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, okay.
So it shows that, how sensitive it is, here, and the different colors show the
Okay.
sensitivities. All
That's
right.
super cool.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to have that. There's only one known. I think he got it. So
One of a kind penis, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I'd love to do some demonstrations using that and put it on videos. I purchased like 8 of these, and this is my last one. I handed them out at Your Whole Baby expos and protests and marches and stuff like that to other people that I knew would go share the story. And
I
I've heard some
crochet.
great
Maybe
stories.
I should learn to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've asked, and a lot of people have stepped up. It's like, yeah, I crochet, but how do you do that? So
Right.
I
That's gonna take a experienced, seasoned old woman for that.
yeah, maybe.
We'll have to
I
hire some.
I love it because it's like one fellow um genital autonomy advocate, Trish, I think it was Trish Kazi, said that she got in trouble on YouTube for using dildos. Yeah,
And like demonstrating with them and using them.
talking about how this works and how that works or whatever using dildos. Now I know of like 2 other people that talk about sex a lot on YouTube. Sexplanations, Dr. Doe, I think is her name, and Caitlin V. They both talk about sex, but they they're careful, very careful on YouTube about what they show. Caitlin's actually shown some. She promotes some products, or whatever, like the beads or the balls that go into a vagina.
Oh, right.
Yeah, those kind of things. It's like, so that's okay to show, but a
Right.
dildo is not. I don't know. I don't know where they're drawing the line at YouTube, but so
Right. That's what
far
I don't
they,
understand either. The
yeah,
line that they draw is it's at a very strange spot because it's
yeah,
like it stops where the education would begin, which would be us, and they don't want anything to do with it.
yeah. So it'll be interesting if I ever get flagged by YouTuber and they tell me, no, you can't do that or whatever. It's like, it's yarn.
my knitted
It's,
my knitted penis.
yeah, it's just yarn. It's in a particular shape, but it's still just yarn. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about this too. I'm going to just talk about now since that's the first part is about the acropostyon. Have you heard that word before?
I don't think I have.
Okay, so if you look at my videos, there's one video about penis engineering. And John Geishiker from Doctors Opposing Circumcision, I got him to go with me to a baby fair, and I set up a table for your whole baby, and they had the opportunity to have presentations made, and John made a presentation that explained how the penis works and kind of compared it to plumbing. Marine. He's had experience with marine plumbing, so it was really good. He kind of connected it, and I kind of have an engineering mind myself. I think that just about any good engineer or mechanic should be able to understand how this works, right? From a physical aspect, we don't need studies or whatever to say, yeah, there's function there, right? To have that. So one in his presentation, he showed an image of, I think, a Greek statue that was naked, and it showed the penis, an intact one, right? And it had the skin hanging off of the end of the penis, probably about a quarter inch past the glands, and that's referred to as the acropostyon. And I think actually that's where the word foreskin actually came from. It's a skin that's before the penis. Of course, if you think about it, it's all penis. you know.
You need it all, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. And supposedly, pre-rabbinical version of this, that's all that was removed, was just the acropostyon, just the part that was hanging past. They didn't go in there with their fingernails or anything or metal instruments to separate the glands from the inner mucosa. So they cut off everything. Brit, priah, from what I understand it's called. It was you can go out to worldimages.org, and they talk about where it's at, even in the Jewish documentation and all. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you're making that face like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.
Sometimes I wonder how I would feel if it really was just the tip. Like, would I really care as much? Would it really be such a big deal? And I'm not sure what the difference is for me, but I feel like if they said, okay, fine, we'll just cut half as much off now. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter at this point. It all matters. Like it all counts, and it's all a problem.
yeah,
And just because they used to do it this way back then does not mean it's right now. Even if they went to the way it was back then, it's
yeah. I've even heard of some doing just a ritual neck of the of the outer skin, and just
why.
get a drop of blood, and that makes it kosher. And okay, he's circumcised. The term circumcised it's a wide meaning. And same thing with females. They've got a whole range of female genital cutting that goes on, right? Anywhere from a ritual neck all the way up to the husband stitch, for example.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's the acropostyon, and today most common is to remove everything covering the glands and to make it high and tight per se. Using various tools like the Mogen Clamp, Gomco Clamp, the Jewish barzel, or the Plastibell. I guess there's also a new one called the Shang Ring.
I have not heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's from China. It's a little scary that China's delving into this a little bit, but it doesn't, they're nowhere. It doesn't seem like they're anywhere near doing this from a ritual standpoint to children, but it sounds like there's some adults that are doing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, why are they like they're still coming out with different ways to like chop up genitals? It just does not make sense.
Yep.
I
Have
can't
you
wait to
seen
wake up
some of the
tomorrow
tools that
and
they used for females?
I have seen one and I don't wish to see more, but
Yeah. Freak you out. It's like
it's
looking at a
very
torture
freaky.
chamber,
It really is pretty much exactly literally what it is. You're looking at a torture device.
Yeah.
It's very cringy.
Yeah. All right. So as people like you and I know, it's been proven by not just the Sorrells study, but even the Bosio study that yes, that is sensitive skin. It is sensitive to light touch, Meissner's corpuscles, and it is sensitive to heat. And it's innervated, it's vascularized. It's not something like cutting hair or clipping fingernails.
Right.
It's live tissue, and when you remove it, it never grows back.
Well, if your eyeball, if you just, hold your eyelid open as long as you possibly can, you could just even cut it off and it will be out of your way. Your eyeball will dry up, but
Yeah,
if that's what you're into, a dried out socket. Yeah, pretty
just stick
much.
your
I
tongue
mean,
out for a long time.
how important are your lips? How important are your eyelids? I mean, I think most people would consider them pretty important body parts, although small and seemingly meaningless until they're not there anymore.
Absolutely. So the next part here is glands protection, right? Even the AAP said this themselves in the early, I think it was 1971, the very first AAP statement on this topic at all. Was that it's there to protect the glands. And that's still true, right? Somehow it disappeared from the newer policies, but you're still protecting the glands because the glands is supposed to be internal, much like your tongue and your eyes, and just like you were saying, all those things. So, and then
What I don't understand, like, what about them saying, what about them saying all these things about the penis? We know that we know, or I'm getting confused. How are they going to say all these things about female genital cutting? Like, these are all important body parts. They all matter. They all have feeling. Without it, it's not the same. How can anybody? It's like they know they're lying, because how can you possibly say that it's not the same for a male? How could you just possibly say that? No matter what you thought, what makes you think that body part on a male is not going to be important as it is on a female? It blows me away.
same here, same here. It really, what happened in 2012 is just obviously got a lot of people pissed off, and that's why we have so many, that's why Bloodstain Man got rolling, and San Francisco or Bay Area activists and all that after that at policy statement, it really got
Oh,
people
okay. So
riled up.
a lot of this started coming out after that happened.
Yeah,
A lot
it
of like,
got people more and more riled up. I mean, that was like a kind of a little bit of a trigger to get people saying, okay, this is enough AAP, you're being ridiculous,
right. Okay. I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Particularly the whole part about benefits outweigh risks. And Georgia, Georgianne Chapin from Intact America said, and you can see this on their website too, I think. They say that outweighs the risks, but they also say that they don't know what the risks are.
And then,
Okay,
but
so
then
how can you
they
do how can you do that math?
completely avoid the benefits altogether. Let's just talk about like the risks that we don't know what they are,
Yeah.
and not the benefits of just leaving it alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, get people riled up like me. And as you've probably seen, I pick on the American Academy of Pediatrics quite a bit, tagging them.
Yeah, I tried to, and for some reason, there must be another.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I remember that, and I had to point you to
Yeah,
the other one.
and it keeps popping up like that, and I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, watch out for that.
Yeah.
They
I
tried to
don't know.
sneak in
I
hard
don't know if
fast.
the AAP is reading my tweets or not, but We
I
need more
do
people to go
know
out there and retweet
they
it.
read them. They read them. I had posted on under Instagram a while ago with the vaccine talk before the vaccine came out, and you might remember it. I had commented under something that had Dr. Fauci on it. Neutral to the situation, but using it as an opportunity to bring up circumcision.
Oh yeah,
So
maybe
it was one of those, like, how could anybody trust what Dr. Fauci has to say about this vaccine when he spews all this greatness for circumcision, which we all know
yeah,
isn't true. So
yeah,
and I think it was on there for 2 or 3 minutes, and they deleted
hmm
it. So I
yeah,
do have the screenshots of that just so I can remember that they do read the tweets.
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that kind of gets down into the doctor-patient relationship stuff that we'll talk about here in a while too. Um, and then there's the rolling mechanism, right? So it's kind of like a rolling bearing. Uh, Mechanics understand what bearings are. Yeah, the skin on the penis is unlike pretty much any other body part. The closest thing you can compare it to is like, moving your cheek around, right? You can move it back and forth, right? Whereas, you try to move the skin on your finger, it's not mobile because it's all attached. The skin is
Right.
attached to the muscles and everything else underneath. Whereas the penis is designed to slide back and forth, and that's because the corpus cavernosum fills up with blood and makes it erect, right? So that the fact that the prepuce is a double fold of skin, it's not just an extra flap of skin. It's not a flap at all. It's not even a flap like your eyelid is. It's doubled up. It goes one way and then comes back to the base of the glands. And different men have different amounts of their prepuce when they're erect. Some still have some coverage, some have a lot less coverage, whatever, and some just pull back just a little bit, and they look just like they would if they were circumcised, right? So when you can watch as my fingers hold this and I push this through, the the penis slides in without any friction between my fingers, my finger and my thumb, right? None of this it's all stayed there. So you go that far into a vagina or an anus without any friction because it just unrolls inside of
I think it's
whatever.
a huge I think a majority of people, even a lot of those who will agree that they don't agree with circumcision, many people still don't understand. They think that, like, an erect intact penis just looks like a long hanging what an anteater. They think it literally
Mm-hmm.
looks like an anteater, and they don't realize it's a very thin piece of skin. It is tight against, like, the penis. It's not like just like a sagging, maybe if when it's flaccid, but who's ever cared about that? No matter any, I mean, what does it matter anyway when it's flaccid? I mean, that's not the point. They're
Yeah.
concerned about the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
It looks the same. It looks appealing. If that's what you need it
Yeah.
to be, it's appealing the way it naturally is.
Yeah. As time has gone on, and I've learned more about this. The natural penis actually looks more attractive to me. Is I'm not gay.
It's
I'm
no,
heterosexual, but still.
it's funny you say that though, because growing up, not knowing much about it, I thought that's the way that a penis looked. Didn't have any questions about it. I think, like, the very few times that the word uncircumcised had come up in my lifetime, your immediate image is something gross, but you have no idea of what.
Hmm.
So when I first started learning about all this and seeing the images, it still wasn't clear to me, like, how does it come out of there? How does it look when it's hard? Like, I am not understanding. And the whole mechanism of it is just so smooth and flawless. Um, and now that I know what I know, and my son, it's the only intact penis I have ever seen in my life, as far as I know.
Hmm.
Um, because again, some people don't even know that they've been with men who are intact because it's just so natural.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with you. I feel like it just looks healthier. It looks like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be that way. Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
where like the it looks better thing, comes is weird to me because I don't really know how you can say that like a genitalia looks good. It's not really, it's has nothing to do with looks at all. Does it work good? Does it work good is the
yeah,
question.
yeah. So some people say, yeah, all genitalia looks ugly, whatever. It's like, well, not to me, but whatever. It's like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it's
And
just,
when
it
it
is
comes
what it
down to it,
is.
beauty is an eye of the beholder, right? And
Right.
the eye that matters is the eyes of the person that owns the body part.
Agree. Agree.
Uh,
No, it,
so you said anteater. You know, I actually like the term turtleneck because it's more accurate when you look at it when you look at the rolling
steps back
mechanism.
in,
Because
protects.
just imagine cutting the skin off of the neck of a turtle. How would that turtle be able to extend its neck properly?
And why would you do that?
Yeah. So don't cut off my turtleneck either, darn it.
God, mine either, honestly. Jeez. That, whatever you would call it, I don't, I want it to stay.
Yeah. Or don't cut off my penis neck.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. It really is.
Yeah. We should
Penis.
stop calling it the foreskin and start calling it the penis neck.
You gotta laugh or you cry, you know.
Exactly.
We'll cry
Okay.
anyway, but
So because you've got the inner side of the foreskin, it's mucosal, much like the inside of your mouth or your nose, or it's or the vagina. It's mucosal. So and it's moist. It's lubricated. You look at an intact penis and you compare it to one that's been circumcised, years ago. It's smooth and shiny. Excuse me.
okay.
So that means that the male gets to bring some lubrication to the game of
Table.
sex. Yeah, deal. Yeah, exactly. So it's not 100% dependent on the female to get that WAP on, WAP.
That wrap.
I've been seeing that term a lot lately, so
Oh yeah,
okay, I'll use it.
that's a hot one.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I've ran, being preputially amputated myself, I think about this like between the lubrication and the running mechanism. It's like, boy, sex would have been a lot easier, especially when we kind of jump into it too fast or whatever.
Oh, right, right. And it's interesting too, you when you mention like like smegma on a male or like lubrication, like natural lubrication on a male, and like females, they find it they're, I mean, even males too who don't know better are just like, oh, and you're like, you do know that definitely every female you've been with
Yeah.
creates far more
Yeah.
of
Exactly.
anything an intact male and bleed once a
Yeah.
month and like
Yeah.
I mean, any female will tell you, and I use it in my arguments all the time on Twitter and things. I'm like, have you ever seen a female's panties at noon? And it's just the truth. It really is. It's just natural. It's supposed to be that way. I mean, showers are important no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And, these males are still creating some sort of, it's still coming out not through like their foreskin. Nothing is being collected. I mean, of course, but it's still being created. It doesn't stop the internal body from
Yeah.
doing what it's supposed to do, but it's not being put to work like it should.
Well, as I understand it, is you have like you have pre-cum and you have I guess there's like glands that generate the
Which
fluid,
makes
right?
sense.
Right, much like the glands in a vagina. Um, but the white stuff that builds up, as I understand that's just skin cells that
Right.
we get rid of tons of skin cells every day,
Your
right?
hair, skin, nails,
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
all of
why
that.
we end up with mites, because they feed on those skin cells. So yeah, just a regular shower.
Or just shower works
Yeah,
for me anyway.
yeah, and I often ladies that are grossed out or whatever. It's like, what? Take them to the shower. If you're worried about it at all, it's excellent foreplay. Take them to a
Right.
shower and
You,
clean
you
them.
feel good afterwards. And I
Yeah,
feel like Even circumcised men will prefer to shower in general. Anybody will prefer to shower in general before like
Yeah.
intercourse, just sexual activity at all, just because.
Yeah. You always watch these shows or whatever where the woman goes off to freshen up a little bit before, jumping
Yeah.
in bed. Just both of you go get in the shower
You can
together,
go do it at the same time. It'll save water,
Yeah.
save time, have fun. It's all, yeah, all the above.
Oh,
Definitely. I know it. It's like such a simple, simple thing. And we have to work so tirelessly to make the obvious come
yeah.
to light. It's very, very strange. It's one of the weirdest. I've never witnessed a brainwash before. I wasn't really sure how what a brainwash was. I hear about it in movies and stuff, how you're brainwashed, but this is a real life brainwash.
Yeah.
It is completely mind blowing.
And indoctrination.
Indoctrination.
Yeah.
It's
There's a good
unbelievable.
video on YouTube about indoctrination. Talks about
Uh-uh.
just indoctrination of children and stuff like that. So
Check it out. I'll check it
yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay, so then another part that gets harmed one way or another. Some men had it like completely carved out, but I don't know if we can see that really good on the camera. But there's this yarn that goes right up here underneath the bottom side of the glands, and that's a frenulum. Kind of like the frenulum underneath your tongue, right? Some children are born with a tongue tie, and that's because the frenulum holds the tongue down too much and far
Mm.
back. In fact, my oldest son had that. When he tried to stick his tongue out, it looked like a fork. This was, day,
Oh,
when he was born, and the very next day we went and got it fixed. It was a quick little snip, and released his tongue, and then his tongue just, started sticking out right away, just like a regular tongue, and then he was able to breastfeed. But
what?
the frenulum on the penis does the same sort of thing, but instead of holding your tongue down, it pulls up on the prepuce. So when the penis starts relaxing, it pulls the prepuce back up over the head of the penis. Right. So depending on the butcher that does the cutting and the tool, different levels, different amounts of that is carved out. You might have a bell where you end up with a cut just below the glands, and like this will be cut, or you have like I think I was cut with a Mogen clamp, and then with Mogen clamp you end up having the cut down lower. The top and bottom part is cut, right? So like Mogen clamp, they pull up on the skin and they cut up here, so that leaves all the inner mucosa that's covering the glands.
It's so hard for me to even, it's just so bizarre. I can't even grasp onto it. 2 years later, I talk about this every single day, and it still is just completely appalling.
I hear you.
And I like in a maternal, just a motherly way, when I like change my son's diaper and I look at him and I'm like, I cannot even imagine ever, ever, ever allowing something like that ever. And I
Yeah.
feel like if people would get their babies home, just get your baby home in one piece, it's it doesn't it make it so much harder to bring them back? I do know a lot of people do the circumcisions like a week or even months after their
Yeah.
child is born. And it's like they very clearly think that it really is the best thing to do, because to be able to create that bond with your very obviously healthy baby and bring them back and then bring them to the hospital and bring them back home totally harmed and different, and it would be so obvious that you would think you would begin speaking out right then and there.
Yeah. No, it's that the indoctrination runs deep, and we end up with cognitive dissonance, and not just one layer of cognitive dissonance. It's not like it's when we're trying to teach people about the harms of this. Not we're just trying to get through one layer, break away this thought that they have that they were taught a long time ago. It's multiple layers, because you got the medical layer, you've got the social layer, you've got the maybe the religious layer. So
Right.
you got several layers to break through to try to convince people. And it would be nice if we just point someone to, say, like the American Circumcision documentary or something like that, and have them go do it and be done. But as you and I know, it often doesn't go that easy. People want to sit there and debate with us on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and we have to sit there and try to educate them right there. It's like, stop wasting my time. Go do a little bit of education yourself. I'm pointing out to you that there is more information that you are missing. Go look at that and then come back to me. And if you still don't believe it after, you still don't get it after watching that, then maybe I'll point you to some other stuff, but don't sit here and waste my time.
Well, you have to, you tell them that it's wrong. And if you can get them to admit that, well, yeah, it's wrong, then they're probably saying, but I'm fine. So then you're like, well, I would really hate to ruin your day, but you're not fine. And I really need you to know this, because I can't have you living your whole life letting people tell you they're going to circumcise their babies and you're just like fine with that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you said, so many different layers. And then in the midst of it, they're beating around the bush and all these weird big words, like things that I don't get into it like that. To me, it's very simple. The baby cannot say yes or no. So by default, it's no. It does not matter what the religion is. I mean, yeah, it's so very simple, but it's so complicated to everybody else to try to justify what's actually going on.
Yeah. 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 So getting back to the frenulum, as I know you've seen on the Sorrells study, that the frenulum area that's a very sensitive area, right? It's like the most sensitive part of the whole penis. And before I started looking into this, I didn't realize that. But after paying attention to when I'm having sex, it's like, yeah, that's like really important part. Because I was cut with, I'm pretty sure, a Mogen clamp, because I have all my inner mucosa, at least I think most of my inner mucosa at the very least. So like if I were actually able to restore and get my inner mucosa, that inner mucosa would cover my glands. So unlike a lot of guys that were cut with bells, and you see very little inner mucosa right below the
Okay.
so they end up having far less frenular area
Black.
there.
Okay.
Well, it's not
Well,
just
it's
slack, but the frenular area isn't just this little bit here. It kind of goes down and spreads out,
like a
and it goes
triangle,
down
like,
towards the bottom of the inner mucosa to pull the whole inner mucosa up. Right, so that's all a very sensitive area. It's hard to explain it. It's not just Meissner's corpuscles. There's something else about it that I find very, very interesting. But I think that's very important. And I've talked to some guys where they say, yeah, that was like all like scooped out or carved out or whatever. It's like whoever did the cutting, the butcher, took the knife and sliced all the way up right underneath the glands and took
I
it
think
all out.
I think that's the case. I think that's the case for my husband. I feel like
Wow.
the different cutting ways that they do it is so freaky to begin with. But I just knowing what I've seen about a circumcised penis, I don't know how the frenulum could be even left there without the foreskin around it.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it seems like what they literally take a knife and just like pull the frenulum taut, scrape it off, because that's what it looks like to me anyway. From
Yeah.
on my husband is what it looks like. There's nothing like that at all whatsoever. There is like slack. I feel like he would be a really good candidate for restoring, but he doesn't really want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, the frenulum when they're cutting it, yeah, is like this. Like underneath your tongue, it's not flat. It's up. Kind of upward.
Oh,
Like
right,
an
right. It
attack
has
penis.
like
So
that
it's
webbing.
yeah, it goes up and over. So they kind of snip it this way, but they leave the tissue typically on the penis to a point. It depends on how it gets cut and what tool and all. But
Well, and
there's
of course they can't do it that well. They're teeny tiny little baby
yeah,
penises. They're like this big. I mean, what can you
yeah,
do with that?
yeah,
It's very
yeah.
sick.
It's really hard to. There's no standard method. Like I said, there's so many tools and yeah, there's no regulation on this or anything. So
Well, when you got them lined up like cattle too, I mean, it's going to be difficult with a bunch of screaming babies, tiny penises. How you're supposed to? Ugh,
yeah,
it's not right. It's not right. It's not right.
yeah, for sure. And then you have the ridged band. And this is typically the part kind of like your lips, right? You've got the part that goes from the intermucosal part out to the skin, the outer skin, right? And from my understand, I'm not an intact myself. I've interviewed a couple of intact guys, but I understand it. It's kind of closed. It squeezes closed, and particularly on a baby, that acts like a one-way sphincter. So fluid can get out, but nothing is supposed to be able to get back in. And when the penis starts becoming erect and that slides down and starts opening up because of the glands, that even just that process of stretching out the ridge band is its own sensation. I think
Right.
Michael
Okay. Yeah.
Wendell did from Foreskin Revolution did an interview where he talks about all the things foreskin and why it's so great and all that. So ridge band is one of those things. And even if you just cut off the acroposteon, the ridge band would be gone.
Right. Plus even that extra covering at the top, I mean, which would still be considered important, right? I mean, that would be lost
Mhm.
even with just that small
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah. Okay, so those are all the parts that are missing or gone or whatever. And that leads to various kinds of effects on the penis, like hairy shaft, for example. And this, at least for me, what happens is the scrotum gets drawn up the shaft of the penis when I get an erection, and it ends up covering about half of my shaft. And of course, scrotum is hairy, especially for guys like me. That's all hairy, right? I'm a bear.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, that's no fun. There's like some pictures on circumcisionharm.org. You'd look at if you want to look at penises too, that show guys with hairy parts that on their shaft that's it's not supposed to be
Not
there, but
supposed to be
it
there.
happens
Yeah.
when they become get an erection, and everything gets pulled out onto their shaft. And then there's, because of that, sometimes testes gets involved, right? So if you're pulling up your scrotum, the testes get pulled up with that inside your scrotum. And I've seen, even like in porn, people talk about, all porn has, circumcised penis as well. That's not true, but you just have to know what to look for.
Right. Right.
But yeah, these cases I've seen where the balls are up on the sides of the shaft instead of hanging
Because it's
down.
pulled so taut like
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And for me, it, when I was younger, I'm 50 now, and things are stretched out down there, kind of like women's boobs, right?
Oh yeah.
They stretch out from gravity. But when I was younger, teens and 20s, one of my testes would get pulled up inside my body. And I just interviewed someone earlier today. Happens to him too, or happened to him too. Yeah, and that's really uncomfortable when that happens. And
You
whenever
just
that
pull it out
happens, it's
yourself?
like, what's that?
You just pull it out yourself? Does that have to
Yeah,
be like,
I have to relax my penis. Let the
oh
yeah.
no.
So then I can like just kind of push it back out a little bit, and then I can resume sex, and I just kind of have to have sex with a little more of a flaccid penis. So that pisses me off that I had to deal with that all my teens
Oh
and
my
20s, right?
gosh.
So I had no idea that it had that was caused because I
Why?
was missing something. I thought, well,
Yeah.
maybe other guys probably deal with it or whatever. And guys don't typically talk about their junk with other
Right.
guys or anything, right? So, but yeah, I interviewed another person earlier today, and it's up on the YouTube channel now. He has the same problem. So it doesn't happen to all guys. It depends on how you're cut and how much and at what angle or whatever, right? So
Awful.
yeah,
Awful.
yeah, no fun. So yeah, it's how guys are when they get kicked in the nuts. It's kind of close to that. It's squeezing on the nuts a little bit.
I think every single circumcised male has for sure a serious issue from it that they just don't even realize
Yeah.
at all. Like they just don't even realize that that's what it is.
Yeah. I was
And they might not even
35.
realize the issue is an issue. They probably think that the issue they're having is just a normal thing, so that it's not even considered an issue to them.
Yeah, it's like being born without seeing, a certain color or whatever, and you had no idea until
And didn't
someone
even know.
tells you, well, that's color whatever, and it's like, and if you've been
Yeah.
born thinking that that color is whatever color it is that they identified, then you might think that you're seeing the right color.
And it's going to be hard for somebody to convince you otherwise. You've
Exactly.
lived your whole life that way, but little do you know.
Yeah, until you get those, I guess they've got glasses now that help people that have color blindness see real color or whatever. It's unfortunately
Oh,
they haven't. Fortune hasn't and figured out how to restore the foreskin so you can experience what it would be like.
wow. There must be another way, John. There must be another way.
One of these days it'll be like the Matrix, and it's just stick that thing in the back of your head, and
Wow, that's what we need. The Matrix is really becoming like so relevant for me lately. I
oh,
feel
I
like
know.
for maybe many of us.
Yeah. So I was like 35 before I even really started thinking deeply about this, and it took me a dozen years before I started speaking out about it. And even after that, I was still putting two and two together more on this.
So it never crossed your mind. I mean, it's so weird. I feel like my husband doesn't really say much about it, but it's like, do men just really do they know and then nobody talks about it? Or they're like, I kind of know, but I don't really know. I know it's just like that. I mean, it's so strange because obviously this didn't happen to me or, so I've never even thought about it, especially like that.
Yeah.
So
Hey, I can get a woman pregnant. That's all I need, right?
yeah, that's all
It
that's
works.
all it's there for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Works,
Uh,
works fine.
no, I consider the sexual part of my life a very important part of my life. So
Yeah.
yeah, and everyone should have that experience if they want it.
Well, females are totally affected by it and
Mhm.
don't even realize it. And I feel like any female you talk to is going to tell you that having sex hurts a little bit, but don't they don't know
They don't know
why.
why. Exactly,
I
especially if
I
they've
thought it was
only
me.
been with guys.
I thought it was me, and then I really didn't. I noticed it all my life, but I thought it was the way it was.
Mhm.
And then it wasn't until after I had my first baby that it hurt more. And I thought that it was just from having kids. And I hear that all the time that people say, it hurts more after you have kids or whatever. That can happen, feels different. Um, and then I learned about all this and I was like, having a baby would not make it hurt. And because it's hurt the whole time.
Yeah.
What makes it hurt? This is what makes it hurt.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy, and I'm 29, I just learned about this 2 years ago, I didn't even know what a foreskin was 2 years ago. I didn't know you had the option to not have it removed 2
Yeah.
years ago, and I didn't know that I had one until 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called the prepuce. And
Prepuce,
you look at the diagrams, and you can see the word prepuce on both male and female.
the big secret,
Yeah. Exactly.
American secret.
And same thing too with the corpus cavernosum. Both males and females have corpus cavernosum. We both have the same parts, just sized a little differently. And
Right, arranged a little differently.
yeah, just a little, yeah. But it's
Same furniture,
extremely,
different living room, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's a good way to put it. So another effect of missing the prepuce is, since you don't have the prepuce there to unroll, so when the penis starts getting erect without having much skin here, instead of it going out like it's supposed to, it might pull upward.
Oh, so common too.
Yeah. So, in certain positions that's okay, but a lot of people like variety, different positions and all that. Well,
Right.
if you change positions that requires this, that can be very uncomfortable. In fact, for me, I can only go so far People are always like,
Oh.
no, I can't do that. Yeah.
Oh.
And you think of like those balloons that you blow up to, make
Mm.
animals or make whatever things. You tie them up and twist them and all that. Same kind of balloons. And if all you have to do is take that balloon and twist it one way, and it kinks, right? Well, kink it one way and then kink it another way. That's how it feels. It's and it's not, and the corpus cavernosum isn't filled with air. it's it's filled with blood, right? So it gets stiff. It's not supposed to be bent like that.
Bending all over the place like that.
So, and you can look at the medical diagrams that shows like a slice sideways of the human body, and you can see the corpus cavernosum going all the way from the anus forward, right? And it goes in a straight line. And when it fills up, it's supposed to go straight out.
So what do you think? I mean, people have said I use that argument too because it is true. I've seen it several times, but then there are some people and they'll say, well, sometimes there's just a natural curvature
It's not
to the
natural.
penis. And I don't, and that's what I say. I'm like, I really, I just, I don't believe you. I think I know
Yeah.
too much about this and that's not natural. No, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what happens, and this gets down to the general botches, which is down the way here, but sometimes, men get, depending, they had to put that clamp on perfectly straight, right? If they put that clamp on this way, or the bell, not perfectly straight, then what you end up with is too much skin on one side and too little skin on the other, or vice versa, whatever, right? And then when the erection occurs, then it turns a little bit. Yeah, you can find porn with those too. It's not that hard to find. So,
Ugh.
yeah. Myelostenosis, something that I think.
Oh, oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I think
You're
I'm
pretty.
losing battery on my phone in a little bit.
Oh, um, if you
Maybe
want
I
to
need
move
to
and
go.
plug it in or whatever, that's fine too.
We'll keep going for now. I think I got 20%. I don't know how long our interview is.
Okay. So myelostenosis, I think you might have seen it. Brian Arp posted on Twitter not too long ago. It was a very large number of boys are affected with myelostenosis. Large percentage, and that's where the meatus, the end, or the urine comes out, closes up a little bit. That's just due to buildup of skin, just like the keratinization that happens on the glands. For me, I actually ended up with a little bridge across the meatus that caused my urine to spray everywhere when I went to when I urinated. I'm thinking I was 7, 8 years old, and my grandmother took me to the hospital, and the doctor just sliced it out real quick, and then it was fine. I didn't feel anything because it's scar tissue. I don't remember feeling anything, at least, but I do have very vivid memory of doing that, of going to the doctor.
It's supposed to be the hole, like where the urine comes from, is supposed to be like closed, right? Because I feel like on circumcised males, it looks very open,
Hmm.
and it doesn't seem like that is right. It should not be that way. I mean, that's exactly what myelostenosis is, isn't it? Where it's like,
Yeah, there's a picture that's going on. I might be able to find it for you and share it with you sometime if you want. But it uh, it shows both kinds of penises, and someone's like pushing on the top of them to
yes,
show the urinary tract, how big it is. The penises, you can tell the penises are the same, but one's intact, one's not, and the glands is shinier than the other and all that. And yeah, you can definitely tell if there's a difference in the size of the meatus.
I think I do have that picture saved somewhere.
Skin bridges is another thing that occurs to a certain percentage. I think you and I have both seen the SPU thing that goes around that shows it was like 11% or whatever of infant circumcisions are botched one way or another. Um, but how do you define botch? I don't know.
Right.
But skin bridges is one of the things that occurs if things aren't properly cared for or whatever, because as you know, the meat or the inside inner mucosa and the glands are attached, kind of like fingernails attached to the bed of your finger during early childhood, and they reach in there and break that all apart and separate it in order to be able to cut things off. But you still end up with a certain amount of inner mucosa, and the body tries to repair itself by reattaching the inner mucosa to the glands, and that creates scar tissue, and then it never separates once it gets there. And like some guy, I've got one guy that's told me how he had to just stick a Q-tip in between his skin
Oh,
bridge all the time to keep things
okay.
cleaned out.
I
So
see.
it's like people talk about, things being cleaner. Well, that's definitely not cleaner.
That's definitely not cleaner. The
Yeah.
the beginning process coming home is not cleaner. You
Yeah.
get off to a bad start every time. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And then we have erectile dysfunction, right? And two things cause, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it, cause erectile dysfunction. You've got something that's going on physical, or you've got something going on with the biggest sexual organ you have, your brain, right? So guys that are cut and they have an inkling of any idea that they're missing something, or their sensation has gone down as they've gotten older or whatever, because their glands has been exposed all their life. Um, when you're thinking about that, it's like, man, what would it be like if I had more um, of my penis, or if that was all still there or whatever. And that's kind of a buzzkill. So it's kind of hard to stay or even get an erection when you know you're missing something. So
You think that comes up? Do you think that comes up in? I mean, it comes up in my head every single time I'm intimate with my husband.
mhm,
So I can't imagine that now. I feel like it probably didn't before. I feel that now he knows, and like how deep I am in this. I talk about it all the time.
yeah,
I think now he probably thinks about it every time too. It's really
mhm,
heartbreaking.
it
You
is.
just can't help it. You just can't help it.
Um,
Every
yeah,
single time it just comes up. That's
yeah. You
that's really
can't
sad.
undo this. Once you start learning about it, you can't unlearn it, right?
No, yeah, you cannot unlearn it. You
Yeah.
just get deeper and deeper into it.
Yeah, the selfish part of me says, I wish I didn't know this. I wish I could turn that off and go
Yeah,
back to when I was 20. Even I had to deal with the problems with my, testes, whatever. Um, I'd rather be ignorant and be in blissful ignorance, right?
I
But at the
agree.
same time, if I didn't know about this, I wouldn't be speaking out about it. I wouldn't be protecting children. My own children probably wouldn't have been
I
gotten
agree.
protected.
Yeah, I agree.
And then the last but not least, the general botches that occur. Sometimes penises get completely removed, like David Reamer's penis got completely messed up because of the cautery tool, I think it was. Sometimes glands get partially amputated or get um, crimped badly, and they end up with lines on it from the clamp forever and ever. And then again, the skin bridges.
I'm sure like skin, I don't want to use the word skin tags, but lack of better words. I mean, I can't imagine that it would be there. There's got to be botches where there's just like pieces of skin just kind of hanging
Hanging
out.
there, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
in fact, the last interview I did today, he talked about how he had well, it was almost like a pimple, but it was right on the scar line, and for the longest time, he had to keep cleaning it out and popping it like a pimple and all that, and eventually, after he did some restoration and everything like that, it went away. So,
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
anyone that has a decent sized scar probably has somewhat of a clue of what could happen. I mean, some men end up with more scar tissue than others, from this. So I have a nice big scar on from my appendectomy. So and I hate it, but and this was before they were doing things more laparoscopically and all that. But
Oh, all right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not comfortable. And it's if anything will teach you how scar tissue works and all that, having a scar like that will definitely, tell you. It's like when you touch it, there's no sensation,
It's
there's no nerves in it.
right. Right. I had a open heart surgery and I've had a back surgery.
Wow.
So I'm super familiar with the sensation on scar tissue. Absolutely. It's a very
Wow.
weird feeling. You can feel, so I know that it's got to feel the same. I mean, my whole back is like numb. I can tell you're touching it,
Yeah. From
but it
pressure,
doesn't
right?
really feel like much. Yep.
Yeah. You just feel the pressure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. Very
Yep.
strange.
So all these things lead to problems in bed, right? with our sexual partners. And I've got it broken up into three things. We got heterosexual sex, penis, vaginal. We have anal sex, and then we have sex that's restricted to gay men that at least one of the two of them is intact. Right? Called docking. I love making fun of Jim Jeffries, because Jim Jeffries actually talked about this on a show, one of his episodes, when he went and interviewed Elon Savroni in Israel with the bloodstained pants and protesting and all that. Do you know who Elon Savroni is?
I'm wondering if I saw him, if I would know who he was. Take in so much stuff all the time.
If you've seen pictures of this old skinny guy holding a sign in the bloodstained pants outfit, and the sign is in Arabic or whatever, or Hebrew, I don't know I'm not sure which one. That's probably Elon Savroni. He's like a solo protester over in Israel, typically Tel Aviv. He's had other people join him from time to time, but yeah, he's gutsy. As far as brave men go, he's on the top of my list.
I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. So yeah, when it affects our heterosexual sex, because since the guy he's dry here and he doesn't have the rolling mechanism, the first entrance to the vagina, if things aren't really wet and loosened up and opened up like a flower or whatever, he might end up tearing the vagina. And personally, a couple of my partners we've had that problem a couple times. Get too excited, rush into things. Yeah. So, and I've heard lots of other stories about how other ways this affects sex for women. There's also like the drying out even over time. Like things might get wet at first, and then after a few minutes or whatever, things get dried out, because there's all this friction, and there's the prepuce isn't there to keep things sealed off. Dr. Doe from Sexplanations, I think, said that it's like a space docking, right? It seals things
it's like
off,
a suction, right? And you like,
you're pulling the lubrications out, and every time you come out, you that lubrication starts drying out every time it comes out, because it hits air, and then it goes back in, pulls out more, and the ridge of the glands, the coronal ridge, also drags things out. So
I feel like most females, when you are in arguments about this stuff, you'll get like really feisty females who are talking about, my man don't try me out. My man don't try me out. And they're lying.
Or maybe their man has some coverage and they just haven't really taken the time to look at it.
Possibly. Or I mean,
maybe when he's flaccid, he's got, just a little bit or whatever,
throughout like the sexual session or whatever you're having, I feel like it's unavoidable. No matter what type of mood anybody's in, you are going to get to a point where you're going to be using something else to help. I feel like in most cases, at least it's always been that way for me out of any.
I'd like to see the numbers on how much sex lube is sold here in the U.S. compared to other parts of the country. I've even heard stories about how, in Germany or whatever, you don't see sex lube on the shelves like you do in the United States.
It's weird. Right before I learned all about this, I was working as a bartender, and they had a sex toy party, one of the common sex toy parties that they have. I don't know. I've heard it a million times, but I can't remember. Anyway, I was really uncomfortable, and I'm not like afraid of sex or anything. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm very like outgoing, comfortable person in front of anybody. Mm-hmm. It was not the sex toys making me uncomfortable. It was, for whatever reason, was like, why do we need all these things? Like, you guys are going over all these different creams and lubes and sprays and toys and all these things. And it's great, like, if you like to incorporate those types of things and whatever. But I remember being like, this is making me really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know what's the deal with. And everybody was like, Sarah, you're being so weird. You're being so weird. Why are you like being so cringy about this? And now looking back, I'm like, because it's unnatural. It's like not, You don't need all
Yeah.
these things. It's just very unnatural. It's like a huge sell, like huge market. Like it's a
Mhm.
market, a market.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
And the things you think about when you don't realize, so I didn't know about circumcision, right? And I didn't know these things, but I still was thinking about how lubrications and all these sex toys and all these things seemed unnatural, because it is. And you don't realize how like pro intact and pro body autonomy you are until like somebody tells you about all these things and you're looking back and you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's why this, that's why that. Yeah, it's really crazy.
yeah, it's stunning, shocking. Yeah.
Just as much every day too. You wake up, I don't know about you. I mean, it's got to be you too. I wake up in the morning, go on my phone to check the news or whatever, and I'm just right away like, I gotta open my mouth already.
Mhm.
Somebody, it's like it's just unavoidable. You go to take the breaks, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'll cut out Facebook, but I got to leave on Twitter because I can't just totally stay quiet about it. And it's like
Yeah.
eventually you're just back in it again. And
Yeah. I'm an ideas guy. Even in my corporate IT career that I've been in for decades, um, I would wake up in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, with this great idea about how to solve a technical problem with technology, and I'd have to get up and at least write down my thoughts and my ideas, or send an email or whatever, and then I'd go back to bed. But if I didn't do that, I could not sleep until I got it done. So I've gotten into this habit where I just work in the middle of the night now for a couple hours and then go back to bed.
it's where you get your best ideas, though,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
say. So
it's
they just come to
crazy.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's same thing happens with me with this. It's like I keep coming up with ideas on how to um, try to educate more or do
Do
more or whatever.
something.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many things that can be done to improve, our websites, or more videos on TikTok or YouTube, or
Well,
or whatever.
The whole GameStop and Robinhood thing, which we've all heard of now, right? You know about that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, like the short selling with the GameStop stocks,
Hmm.
and all the big billionaires were short selling all these companies.
Uh,
They're going under. So then all the people, you and I type people, got together
mhm,
and started buying all the stocks
mm,
so that the billionaires would lose their money because they were short selling them. So now everybody says, hey, we know that you're short selling all these companies. So now we know all we have to do is come together and buy that stock. You lose and we win. So I was thinking about that in
wow.
terms of like advocacy and all that. Like, we have so much more power as than we realize. If we all came together with some money and some ideas, if we had an idea and we all put our money together, I mean, there's thousands of us, and put our
Mhm.
money together, we can do something really, really, really big. But we've all got to be in it, and we've all got to talk about it. So, but it's possible. It's 100% possible, and it should be done. It should be done.
So that explains the. I saw an image where you saw millennials next to GameStop, and then the other
Yeah.
image was like vice versa. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean,
funny.
that sparked an idea, and it's just like, it all these regular people fighting for the same thing, and they all just chipped in and bought a piece of
Hmm.
GameStop stock, and brought it up. The billionaires lost. I mean, this is just happening right now. This is like a huge like history thing. So but yeah, it really sparked an idea, like these people can all get together. We can all get together, and this to me is so much more important than GameStop. I mean, the
Yeah,
principle of it, it means a lot, I guess, but just I knew if all these people can get together, I know that we could do it too.
neat, interesting. Okay, the other things is anal sex. Obviously, anal doesn't have lubrication, but if you had an intact penis, again, that rolling mechanism and that little bit of lubrication that is inside there can make anal very different, right?
Well, in anything that you're sticking a penis in, like, because it literally will unfold inside for you, and
Exactly.
people don't understand that the skin literally like unfolds to allow it to elongate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have homosexual docking, um, and you kind of need to have that skin work with, to play inside of, or whatever. There, if you're up to looking for it, there's videos of men doing this. So.
I think I might have seen it, and otherwise I can't imagine it. I
Yeah,
can put an image, but I mean, it's like all these things, people want to do, and people should be able to do them. Why shouldn't they be able to do them? And you're
yeah,
ruining so many things for
yeah,
what? It has nothing to do with you. You're ruining all these things for all these people who just want to enjoy themselves.
yeah. Yeah. And some people come up with a dumb excuse. Well, he won't get blowjobs. You don't even know what his sexual preference will be.
Right. And why is that like you? So your very first concern is that
Yeah.
he's not going to get a blowjob. Oh, I'm going to plug in. How about that? Oh, are you there?
Yep.
Hold on one second. I'm gonna move my
Okay.
I'm gonna move my whole station. Can we do that?
Okay. Awesome.
I'm gonna move it so I can plug it in right here. Okay. I don't know if you can see me okay still. It's kind of dark in here.
Yeah. No,
We
that's
live
great.
in the woods.
Oh.
So
Yeah. Nice house.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. So all this kind of leads on into psychological impacts, and not just, again, to the person that's been physically cut, but to everyone. Right. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, like I was saying earlier about how it's just I think about it all the time. And to go based off of what you said too earlier, how you sometimes wish you could just go back and like you didn't know it anymore, because it really is like a life ruiner. It really is, even to me who
Yeah.
I have all my genitals, and it is a life ruiner. My son is intact and it is still a life ruiner.
Yeah. Yeah, I think often about people that have lost their leg or whatever from war or an accident or whatever, and I'm sure that's kind of depressing to a certain extent. But it seems to me like once you really realize the harm that's done to this, some men get extremely depressed. Some have committed suicide, which we get into, um, because it's something that's been done to you without a good reason. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't part of a war where you were out fighting for freedoms or whatever. It was done to you out of basically ignorance.
Right. It was done to you to make a couple dollars.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what was going to happen to you,
Yeah.
because the doctor who did it to you, it was also done to them, and they don't care either.
Yeah. I tend to lean on the side that people are genuinely good at the root, and that they
And
wouldn't
their intention
do
is
this.
good.
Yeah. They
Well,
just
it's
don't
weird
know.
when you are pro circumcision, so you'll know because you used to be pro circumcision, now you're not, so you know too, the same way I do, where it's like you really you really do have to be talked out of it, and you just can't even believe that it's would be okay to leave a baby hole. You can't. You're like, are you sure that's okay? Is it okay if I don't circumcise? And I came home
Yeah.
with my son, and for the first week home, I was like, I don't know. I feel like something bad's going to happen. I feel like I should have just done it. Then I don't have to worry about anything that's about to pop up. And now looking
Yeah.
back, I'm like, God, that is so weird. That's so weird.
Yeah. I had some of those same thoughts too. And when we decided to leave our first son in touch, it's like, so I had to keep on researching. It's like I didn't
Yeah.
just automatically trust the intactivists or whoever you want to call them. That it was very clear that there were two sides to this debate, and it's like, okay, well, which side is right? And
Right.
I had to keep on digging. It's like, and I had
Yes.
to I had to I had to get it from the horse's mouth. It's like, okay, intact guys, talk to me. How does this work?
Right. Right. I was like, so if I leave him intact and he gets a yeast infection, or when he gets an infection, what do I do? So I go back to infections, and then it's like, well, it's just a yeast infection. Okay.
Yeah.
So
How,
very
how,
simple. Go or a
how do
UTI.
women?
Very simple. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just like women, less than women. I've
exactly.
had several UTIs, and I've never can't recall a single time I've ever been asked if I wanted to be
Yeah.
circumcised. And I feel like you don't even have to have a UTI to be a male, and they're begging you to do it.
Yeah, we need to expose that meatus and cut away those beef flaps so your meatus is
Yeah.
exposed so it stays dried out so it doesn't get infected as easily. I mean,
What's the
is it,
point? What's the
is it
point?
really the same?
Right.
Yeah. So the first psychological impact that I have is the trauma from the cut itself. And a lot of people think, well, they're a baby, so they're not going to remember. So why does it matter? But then people like you and I are like, well, Bill Cosby.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't remember, they were drugged or whatever, so it doesn't really matter.
Fine if they don't remember. I know, and that argument always really gets to me because you start throwing out like, okay, so these are all the things that you'd be okay with doing to somebody as long as they don't remember. It's fine then. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Just so
and I
inconsistent.
like the ear piercing thing too. It's like we pierced our daughter's ears too, and actually I didn't bring her. My husband's mother brought her and was like, "Can we get her ears pierced?" And I was like, I don't want to be there. And I was like, I don't know about this, and this, I didn't have my son yet. She was 6 months old at the time, my only child. And I was like, I don't want to be there for it, but I let her do it. She like told them that she was her mom and everything so that she could get the consent to do it. And then when I learned about the circumcision thing, I was like, I am a regret mom, but I was like, I can't believe like I would be okay with that. I knew in my heart it was wrong at the time. I knew it was wrong, but I was like, and it's so similar. But like anybody will say who's into this kind of thing will tell you, well, ear piercing does not remove an extremely important part of the body. You can take it out. But at the end of the day, it is wrong. At the end of the day, a baby cannot say, yes, I would like my ears pierced at 6 months old, so it is wrong. But I do, there is a huge difference. I mean, I don't go around actively fighting against newborn ear piercings. I mean, I don't agree with it, and I will chime in, but maybe. But if you mentioned circumcision, you're definitely going to hear from me.
Who knows? Maybe someday they'll figure out a way to do an MRI or something when they're, piercing children's ears.
It's such a weird. Why would you pierce your baby's ear? So now my daughter, she's 4. I'm like, do you want to take your earrings out? We can take them out. And I'm feeling bad. And she's like, no, I like them. So I'm like,
okay. You kind of have to wonder, though, if there's any kind of psychological effects long term,
right?
From the
terror,
from it,
yes, absolutely.
Like, what was that or whatever? Even just the sound,
right? And the people holding you down, knowing that you're upset and crying, and they're like, no, hold you down, let's do this.
And some men have reported, like nightmares. I'm one of them. From that they figured out were due to that time.
Which I believe, I bet you would have, I mean, I'm sure it's so common to have nightmares that are reoccurring, and you're not exactly sure like what it is in the dream, and it might not link directly to a circumcision, but it could be a violent dream that's reoccurring. And like Jay Jackson explained about his book.
Did you read his book?
Yeah, I have it. I've read some of it. I have it
for the viewers.
Yes,
I got it by Jay Jackson.
It's what I really like about it is because I told him this too. I was like, you write a lot like I do. It's just very raw, like exactly what you're thinking. Just really straightforward, not worried about hurting people's feelings. And that's what I like about it. It's really informative. It's very interesting. He talks about his recurring nightmare. And he drew this picture, of him laying in a bed and and people standing next to him, and he's tied down and upset faces. And he don't know. He said he didn't know what it meant until he was, in his mid 30s.
Yeah, and he explained it in very much detail that made it quite clear about how it definitely was from that, because there's nothing else that happened to him before they started happening, before the dream started happening, that he could attribute it to. So, I myself, it stopped when I was in my late 20s, but I always had this. It hadn't happened every night, but I had frequent dreams where I felt like I was not able to move, right, and something bad was about to happen to me. But I don't know what it was. I don't know who. I don't see the face or anything, but I saw something coming to me, and something was about to happen to me, and then I'd wake up. Right. So.
Right. You don't know what it's coming from. And my mom, she's a regret mom. My brother, he's 26, and she texted me. I think it might have been this morning, maybe yesterday morning, and Sarah, I had this awful nightmare, and she says, I'm trying not to laugh. It was about squirrels, and the squirrels were circumcising each other, and the way they were doing it was by taking a torch to the tip of each other's penis.
Oh, cool.
And she's like, I wake up, I'm laughing about it now, but in my dream, she was like, my heart was just pounding. She said that her husband woke up because she was talking in her sleep saying, oh no, don't do that. Oh no, don't do that. And I told her, I was like, yeah, mom, it affects everybody. You would have never had these dreams until you learned about what circumcision
Yeah.
is. And now you're having these really fucked up dreams.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It
There you
affects
go.
everybody just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It it's underneath everyone's skin. And then for those of us that get older and start learning about the ways that we're harmed and what we're missing, like me, we have trauma from those discoveries. I personally, I didn't learn all these physical aspects and how they connected to, like my testes getting pulled up and all that stuff. It's like I would learn, oh, well, okay, there's lubrication. Okay, so that means that this would have been different. And then, oh, there's a rolling bearing. Oh, well, that means that this would be different. Oh, there's, the,
Like at the
well,
frenulum, that's missing. That
yeah,
is the
and then, I
most
learned
part.
about the Sorrells study, about how that's all sensitive skin and why I don't have a whole lot of sensitive
Well,
skin.
does a male realize and I noticed this too before I even knew what circumcision was, the head of the penis, the glands of the penis being scaly looking. And I always noticed that. And I was like, I don't know why it looks like that. And the rest of
Yeah,
it doesn't look that way. And all my life, again, like 30 years old, and I'm like, why is this happening? But now that I know, now it makes
yeah,
sense. And
yeah,
nobody can deny that. Everybody
yeah.
knows that's true.
Yeah, I didn't learn all this all at once. I learned that,
Right.
I learned one aspect and kind of make a connection, and then I go back. I'm introverted, so I just process it internally and disappear, and then I come back to it and learn another thing, another aspect, and then make another connection in my head. It's like, oh, that's why I have the hairy shaft, or oh, that's why my testes are pulled up. We're pulling up in my body. Yeah, I learned all these piece by piece. So I keep on going round and round and round through the levels, the 5 steps of grief, right? Starting
Yeah.
off with denial and you know bargaining and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm introverted, so that I dealt with that pretty much internally.
Do you think it's the same since, I feel like females can kind of go through this process too. Not in the
Uh,
same way, never in the
well,
same
as a
way,
partner, I'm
but
sure.
I feel like when I learned about this, I immediately was kind of like, not really denial, but just like, kind of in disbelief. I don't really know if that's true.
Yeah,
And then I kind of I was like sad. And
yeah,
then I got like super, super mad. And I was
yeah.
really mad for like a good year and a half, and
Mhm.
like really angry with my husband, just angry in general, just
Yeah,
waking up just
even though
really
it's not
on
his
edge
fault.
all
Yeah,
yeah, just really on edge all the time about it. And I think just recently I've started to be able to control like the backlash that you get, and now I'm just like, well, whatever. But like,
exactly.
it takes time to like come to a full understanding of like how awful this really is. Because sometimes I'm like, is this really a reason to
Yeah,
be like so upset? Like, am I being
no,
extra
not at
about
all.
this, and then I'm like, no, Sarah, this is like a really messed up
Yeah,
thing, like a really
yeah.
messed up thing.
Again, this trauma from the discoveries of the loss and harm aren't specific to just the people that have been cut, because it affects the partners too,
Yeah.
right? The sexual partners. And if you're really committed to your partner, it can be a grief thing that you have to go through yourself, because you realize you're missing out on something that
Right.
yourself.
Right.
You might be having totally different, maybe mind-blowing great sex, if he would have had all of his parts. My
Right. You
wife
feel right.
my wife, she told me one time that she thinks that she's probably missing out on something too, and it made me sad, but it's part of what woke me up more about this and led me to continue to delve into this deeper, and she she kind of hates herself now because it's like I've become this monster intactivist that spends tons of his hours every day advocating for children, and less time
Relatable.
with her. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
That's
you know what? You hooked me up, babe.
right, 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 right. I know, I'm kind of waiting on my husband. I mean, he did mention going to the protest that we are trying to get organized here for in April.
Mm,
But that was really the first thing I've ever heard of, like, kind of in support of this movement, other than physically and actually leaving his own son intact. Um, but I feel like, and he's a major introvert like yourself. Like I
mhm.
could never imagine him talking about this, even just to me one on one. It's just a very secretive. I don't want to say secretive. Just he doesn't want to talk about it. But I wish
Yeah.
more. I wish more people would, especially the ones that are just so like quiet about it, because it's like though they're not left out either. It really is all of you. It really is everybody involved. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your feelings on that. It's and
Yeah.
being open
Definitely.
and honest about that.
Yeah.
That's what we need. I think that we need people to hear people complaining. I use that
Yeah.
hashtag men do complain a lot, but I've been thinking we need a hashtag for women.
They do complain. Everybody complains.
Yeah,
Everybody complains about it once they know about it. They really do.
yeah,
And it's hard to draw that line between like the shaming men for what was done to them and being educational about it, like, and come forward and say, well, I feel like I'm being robbed of something.
yeah,
And, that has like tendencies to hurt somebody's feelings, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm
yeah,
trying to say that this should not be happening because I am missing out on something. And so are you. And it's
yeah,
not your fault or my fault. This should just not be happening.
yeah. We need to
Moving
stop it.
forward, we need to not do this. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a guy, I don't feel ashamed when someone tells me, "Well, you're missing out on this function. Right? This doesn't work that way. This would be working this way if you had it." It's kind of like saying, like if someone didn't have a thumb and you're just like, "Well, you see how my thumb works? Sorry that you don't have that, but you're not going to be able to do that, do what I
Yeah.
could do because I have my thumb."
Yeah.
It's like
Okay. I
I'm
mean,
not
it
trying to
seems like
shame you. That's just the fact.
right, right.
Okay.
It's like it almost makes you feel bad. Like for me, as an intact female, and I don't know if other females can relate, but you almost feel bad talking about having intact genitals when you were not even aware that you had what was called intact genitals not long
Hmm.
ago, and you feel bad about it because you're like, I don't know how to soothe you in this. I don't know how you're feeling about this. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there'll be some more psychologists and counselors or whatever coming out of the woodwork to help people deal with the trauma and all. I know Jordan Norell has been doing some videos, Zoom calls or whatever, talking to men that are traumatized by this. I know that in norm meetings, guys will, including me, I went to one norm meeting and it was great. I was so happy to just let loose, how angry I
Oh, right.
was about it, among a bunch of guys that totally understood. Didn't respond to me saying, "Oh, you're just making it up," or "You're being too dramatic," or anything like that. They didn't, they were like, "Yeah."
So were you like surprised? Was it like more men than you thought? Like every man has something to say about this, or did it shock you the number of people that were in there and what issues that they had, or were you expecting that?
I there's not like I was not expecting it. But yeah, there's different experiences because of, again, different cuts.
It seems it
So
would make it even more of a reality for you, being like, all these people have something to complain about, but
hmm
the same thing that I do.
yeah, yep. There's like one guy that I met that it sounds like he has the exact same kind of cut that I have, and he's been trying to restore for years. But because of the kind of cut he has, it's a lot harder to restore that. So yeah, it's good to. We still meet once a month even through this pandemic on Zoom and chat. So,
Good, good. Yeah.
yeah.
having the resources available. I went to school. I didn't finish school. I went to a few semesters of human services. I wanted to be a counselor,
Mhm.
and now I wish I would have finished it because I feel there needs to be circumcision counselors, genital mutilation survivor counselors
Yeah.
specifically for that. I was talking to somebody. His mom is concerned with him because he's getting very depressed. He's learned about his circumcision. He's asking mom questions, and she thinks he's crazy for it. She sends him to a therapist, and therapist is telling him, well, it's just a religious thing. You have nothing to be upset about, no reason to be upset. And I can't believe that they'd be allowed to say that, because I'm positive a female would walk in there and say, I've been raped as an infant. I was raped, and I'm having severe trauma from it. And oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Why would it be, why are they like that? But that's why I'm looking forward to, I think actually tonight, Brendan Murata held it was like a virtual,
Hmm.
like seminar about his new book about how
Yeah.
come people don't listen to men who complain about this, but are so quick to wait on women who've said they're raped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird.
Exactly. Yeah. For the viewers, there's this PhD psychologist, Ronald Goldman, who wrote The Circumcision, the Hidden Trauma. And I know that he's done a session at least once. Jordan Orell joined it to talk to men that were traumatized by the fact that they were cut. So, excuse me. Oh gosh. Oh well.
Okay.
So yeah, and Ronald Goldman, he's also Jewish. All right, so for some men, it's led to suicide, as you and I know. Got David Reamer. They tried to make Dr. Money tried to make him into a girl, and Jonathan Conte, who is also a huge advocate for genital autonomy, and Alex Hardy, several others. And there's been a couple of interviews that I've done were connected to suicides as well. One man I was speaking with, his friend committed suicide, and his friend was talking to him a lot about how he was upset about the fact that he was circumcised. So he's pretty confident that it was the main factor in that led him to suicide. And another person I interviewed, her husband committed suicide. She didn't know how much the fact that he was upset about his circumcision affected it, but yeah,
I'd imagine it's a frustration beyond words, which it leads to death. The frustration that there's nothing you can do about it. I
yeah,
feel like it would be one of those things that it literally drives you crazy,
yeah,
crazy enough to commit suicide. Yeah,
yeah.
it's very sad.
And you could try doing restoration, but that takes years and years, and it's very, very tedious and frustrating. So, and lots of men, again, in the NOR meetings, whatever, they talk about how they were so mad that they had to do this to try to get, some coverage of their glands back or whatever. And then we have psychological effects of children. Now, some children, they start learning about this when they're teenagers and figuring out, that they're missing some stuff. And I'm sure there's a level of trauma to that. But I also worry about children that are like involved with us as advocates.
Okay.
I think of Greta Thunberg. I don't know if you know her
Yeah.
history leading up to showing up at the UN and speaking out at the UN. But her dad talked about how when she started learning about the problems with global warming, or whatever you want to call it, in school, she started getting depressed and withdrew and all that. And it wasn't until she stood outside with a sign, at the sidewalk or whatever, advocating for changes to, help fix the planet. And that they gave her, I guess, a sense of power, gave her a sense that she had a voice and all that, and that people would pay attention to the voice. And like a letter to the UN. So while on one side I feel bad for my own children to have to live in this world that does something like that I consider barbaric. Um, when they join me, they've even joined a little bit on social media, but
Mm.
they've also joined me protesting all that. It, I think that gives them a sense that they have a little bit of power
They
over
have a
this.
voice, and somebody will hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, so how do you? I've always thought about my kids getting into this with me because I know that I will be like this forever. I know I'm never just going to stop doing this, and I know
Hmm.
that my kids are eventually going to know about this. It's not avoidable.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I think it's great to see kids involved because people are like, oh, it's inappropriate. They're kids, and
Mhm.
you're like, well, you
You do it to
had them
kids.
violated at hours old. What do you mean it's not for kids? Like,
Yeah.
you do it to infants, people younger than them.
Hmm.
And I think it's a real thing. It's not like you're telling your kids to go around and join you in a lie, or like it's very true, very,
Yeah.
very true, and very serious and very important. And I feel like I would be really proud of my kids for being involved with that, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not by chance involved in the medical profession at all, are you?
Not.
No. Okay.
No, I'm
So
not.
that's another psychological thing. We have several medical professionals involved in the movement. Um, you know, uh,
I have well I had my dad's wife, stepmom, whatever you would call her. She is a nurse, and she is somebody who I have to censor from my posts.
mm,
Not because I didn't censor them at first, and she was one of the people coming, well, girls, I said, why don't you get your daughter circumcised? How come trying to, it was when I first started. So I was really lost for
yeah,
words and how to word things. I was just kind of blabbing, get it out as fast as I can, listen to
yeah,
me. Um, and she, was going back and forth. And then there was a break, and I had censored her for a while. And then something else had come up, and it was on a public post of mine. And all the intactivists came and attacked her,
hmm,
and I stayed out of it because I was like, I would not attack her, but I'm gonna let them do it because
yeah.
then, she'll see what I'm talking about then,
I've
like
had
it's
some of
not
those posts.
right. It's not just me,
Yeah,
so I let them attack her. And that's the last time I let her view, I've been censoring her from then on, but she's a nurse, and that's, why she thought these things. And I don't think I've seen her, we've seen them at Christmas, and I don't think that she thinks that way anymore.
mm,
you
nice.
know, I
Yeah.
don't think she'll admit it, but
Well, maybe she'll become part of the Nurses for the Rights of the Child.
she should. I'm like, there's never any shame in
Yeah.
this when you just say you're wrong. That's exactly
Yeah.
what you should be doing, is saying, I did not even
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
take it back. Yeah.
Exactly. And I often, well, we hear it sometimes from the people that are involved in our movement that they work as nurses or doctors or whatever in the hospitals or clinics where this stuff happens. And I think I was interviewing another, actually, the recording didn't work out, but Sylvia, she works now at a clinic that does not do it, so she doesn't have to deal with the psychological effect of hearing the baby down the hallway
Oh,
screaming or whatever.
yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
can't, I would not be able to work in a hospital.
No, that's a
I
deal
wouldn't
breaker
be
for
able to
me
trust
too.
myself. I'd probably end up kidnapping the kid or something like that.
Yeah, I would too. Definitely.
Yeah,
100%. There's no way I could ever work in healthcare if there were people doing that to babies. No way. I
yeah,
would definitely end up in jail for sure.
yeah. I dropped off my mother-in-law. She has Alzheimer's, but during this pandemic and all, it's like I figured they just want to take her by herself, and it's like I just told them, she has Alzheimer's, so you have to, you're just gonna have to adjust your expectations of her due to that. But she had to go in for an MRI, and it was going to take a couple hours, whatever. So it's like, okay, I'll just go out and I'll give me a holler when it's done or whatever. I went out to the car, changed into bloodstained pants, and protested at the same hospital.
Oh my God.
There's
Hey, that works.
yeah, still no protest out there.
Oh.
Yeah, the security guard came out and talked to me and all that, and I guess the director of the hospital tried to, have the security guard convince me that I had to go across the street because I was on the sidewalk that was on the side of the street where the hospital was. I was on private property. He's like, no, 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 no.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
BS. I'm not moving, and called them on that bluff. And the security guard talked. I don't for at least a half an hour with that director on the phone, kind of out of my earshot. But I saw him, on the phone, and I'm like, I wonder what the heck is going on. It's like I told them I talked to the same hospital. I went in and talked to um, the house supervisor and said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. I'd really like to, work with you guys instead of, just going out and protesting or whatever. And, if you pass my information on to the board or whatever, and, let's chat about what we might be able to do to improve the situation. And they never did respond to me. So I was like, okay, well, this is what you guys get. You're going to get my protest then, months later. So.
What do you think about I've emailed just like you and everybody else, or I don't know what other people do actually, but I've emailed, several different doctors and OBGYNs
Mhm.
and complaints offices and just whoever, wherever, but
Yeah.
why do you think they don't they don't take that as a case like they would any other? I mean, it's the whole thing earlier, like I said, with Brendan Murata's book coming out, like why nobody wants to listen to it.
Yeah.
Why do they not want to listen to it?
Hmm.
No
Yep.
matter how you approach it, so it's like you can come off gentle, you can come off mean or aggressive or really soft or
Yeah.
whatever, but it's like I feel that if they don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it, and most of them don't want to hear it, and I want to know why
Yeah.
is my, you know.
There's clearly a legal aspect to it too, right? It's like, the hospitals at all, um, they can't accept at all. They can't acknowledge that this is violating anything in any way. I mean, if they do at all, it's like that opens them up. So their lawyers are probably telling them, keep quiet, don't say a thing. So I don't know where, where the floodgate is gonna, break open. Um, Somewhere, somehow, someone is going to have to be gutsy enough to speak out and make a change that's going to allow everyone else to say, okay, we're just not going to do this anymore or whatever.
Right.
But
Someone's got to open up the gates so that the crowds
yeah,
can flood through.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of us had some hope for Andrew Yang, but
Ah, I know it. And I didn't even know that about him until like after the whole, you know, after all the elections and everything. And
yeah, I was there when Jellyfish Rave tweeted at him. I was part
I
of the group. We were
we got to
chatting.
keep him we got to keep him around, because he's
Yeah,
people like him. He's got a loud voice, a big voice, and
yeah,
so yeah, that really I mean, and even though he never got elected for anything or whatever, I mean, just knowing that somebody that high up had said that publicly um really feels like an improvement to me
yeah,
anyway. I mean, I feel like any step forward is a step forward in my book,
yeah,
anything that anybody says. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of groups that could probably just stop doing it and just say, like for instance, the Catholic hospitals. There's, I guess Providence doesn't do it, like Providence and Olympia, Washington, but um, a lot of the Catholic hospitals do perform the procedure, and Catholics are against it. Popes have spoke against it. So it's pretty clear that Catholicism is against it, and the Catholic hospitals could just say, okay, because of our faith, we're not going to do it anymore, and they don't have to admit any guilt or anything. They just say, go somewhere else to get it done if you really really want it done, and that would probably change a lot of minds just right there.
Right.
So, um,
Right. Especially getting Medicaid to step to funding.
yeah, yeah. States shouldn't be funding this. The U.S. government should not be paying for it inside of federally operated hospitals like military hospitals, like I was cut in the naval hospital.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, so it's kind of the same thing that how like the UK and Australia, and I think even Canada, drastically reduced the numbers just by cutting it out of the National Health Service, the NHS or whatever. It's not covered by state or government funded insurance. So if you want to get it done, you have to go to a clinic or whatever. Like up in Vancouver, Canada, you can go to Dr. Pollock's office, for example, but you have to pay out of pocket to get it done. It's not going to be paid for by the government. And our own country, our own states are using tax dollars to do this, and
And
that's
in other countries.
yeah. And I guess there's a lawsuit about that in one state. It's like, well, you're using tax dollars for something that's not therapeutic. That's against the law.
Right. And I mean, it funds the African
Oh yeah,
propaganda
PEPFAR.
too, which is
Yeah.
totally like, what?
Hmm.
And it's like, and they can't even stick with the same excuses or reasoning. They have to switch it up over there and tell them it's for totally different reasons.
Yeah.
Tell them it's,
Yeah.
to prevent HPV in females. And
Some of the documentation that's been coming around on that is like, okay, oh, they've been using the Mogen Clamp, and the Mogen Clamp was sued out of existence a long time ago, and the Mogen Clamp was causing um, botches or whatever, too many botches, and so they decided to stop doing it. And I think they even said something about not doing it to babies over there. Only, they can only do it to men when they volunteer for it, which was the whole thing in the first place. Was VMMC, voluntary male circumcision or whatever.
if they just cut it out of hospitals right then and there, I feel like it'd drop it by like more than 50%,
Yeah,
because I feel like the only reason people do it is because they're like, well, okay, like, I don't know,
yeah.
sure, it's right here, I don't know.
Well,
If they
that's pretty
actually
much
had to
how it worked
leave,
in Australia.
okay,
You
yeah,
know,
I mean, duh,
I guess they are not allowed to do it in public hospitals in Australia. So,
incredible.
yeah. All right, so let's see. We were talking about children and then medical professionals. Then we talk about the psychological effects on parents. Right, just particularly parents that learn about this too late. I can relate to a certain extent because I came this far from allowing my own child to be cut. Um, Thankfully, I'm super thankful for Intactivists because
Yeah.
my wife was provided information while her OB, luckily she changed providers, but her OB asked the question as if almost as if it's a given, like, of course, why wouldn't I? Um, and she changed for unrelated reasons to a midwife, and then got information. And anytime I think about that fact that I could be sitting here as a regret parent or whatever right now, it just makes me absolutely sick.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Right.
It's just like this deep guttural. Oh
If I had, I wonder always too, if I had never seen that Facebook post, I would have never even thought about it. And then I'm like, well, my husband still said no, but then would I have been so willing to go along with that
yeah,
if I hadn't seen this anti-circumcision post? I would have been like, no. I mean,
yeah,
obviously that's what you do. You're cut too. I mean, so
yeah,
yeah, it's like it's by total chance that people learn about this usually. It's just totally random that they learn about it
yeah.
and
Yeah,
go off
I
from
hear
there.
plenty of times where even like the man will be intact, but the woman will actually push to get the
Yeah.
baby cut. It's like, how does an intact man allow that to happen to his child? I don't know. It's like maybe
Yes.
they have an alpha woman as a wife or whatever. I don't know. I talked to a guy locally here. He had an Israeli wife, and he had two boys get cut, and he actually was there and watched it. Um, like, how? I just don't
How?
know how you let that happen to your own child. So yeah, it goes both ways. We got most often hear men that are cut. It's like, well, you need to be looking like me or whatever. It works for me. I'm fine or whatever. And so we need to cut my son because hey, this has served me well or whatever. So,
Right.
you know, yeah. So yeah, I think this whole the whole fact that ritual genital cutting is happening in the world affects parents one way or another.
And just piggybacking off what you said, like I can't imagine doing that to my kids to the point it makes me physically sick, and my children are fine, and intact. And so thinking about being a mom, thinking about how I let that happen, I feel as though that would definitely be like a suicidal thing. I mean, it's so frustrating that you can't take it. And
Yeah,
it's kind of what my mom says. It's like she says, I can't try not to think about it. I have to force myself to avoid it actually
yeah,
because it makes me so crazy to think about that. I actually let that happen. There's nothing I can do about it. It makes
yeah,
me sick. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. This is such a hard thing, because we don't want people to feel bad, obviously, but at the same time, we don't want this to continue. So how do we stop it from continuing without making people feel bad?
Right. There's not a nice way to tell you that your genitals have been mutilated and are destroyed. I
Yeah,
mean,
or your child's genitals have been mutilated, or your nephew's child's genitals have been mutilated, or your daughter's genitals have been mutilated, and this is why it's horrible, and this is why it's horrible, and all that. And people don't want to hear that. It's not a happy thought. But if we don't face this, then it just continues, and we don't speak out against it. We don't change it.
I wonder if I think to myself if is the uncomfortable feeling coming from the fact that it's like a genital part, like because people are ooh,
Oh, yeah.
and are weird about that. I mean, if we were cutting off like ears or a thumb or a pinky at birth, would it be just the same awkward, uncomfortable conversation, or is it like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, it would be Kyle Chin. He talks a lot about how they used to do foot binding in his, like, grandmother's times or whatever, and how that um, ritual came to an end, but it was not an easy end. It came through a lot of shaming and everything like that to get it to stop. Even after it was like outlawed, it can continue to happen to a certain extent because everyone was so used to it. It was kind of a hard thing to put to an end. I kind of wonder. I'd love to talk to people that fought that battle and see how that battle went, and kind of parallel it with this one, because I think that this one would be even harder to stop, because just like what you said, it's you know there's not a whole lot of taboos around feet. It wasn't about religion. Um, it's mostly just about looks, it seems. Um, and again, it's not genitalia, so there's not as many taboos around trying to talk about feet being bound. When we talk about genitalia and how this is so tied to the Abrahamic religions, um, yeah, it's taboo, taboo, taboo. So it makes
uh,
it very difficult to
yeah.
get people to talk about and think about.
Well, you start getting, I mean, me anyway, I have gotten so used to like the language that uh, circles around like the intact movement and anti-circumcision movement and all that, and I'm so open to begin with, I'm at work and I'm just starting to talk about like mutilated genitals and all these things. And I forget that like people don't talk about these things, Sarah. People don't just like talk about this, and but you've heard I I've got all these people, all these teenagers, 18, 19, 20
Yeah,
year
that's
olds
awesome.
hating on it, because it flows so naturally from my mouth in conversation,
Uh-huh.
and it's
Yeah,
definitely probably
you,
not work appropriate,
you need
but
to take one of these to work with you.
I need one of those. I need to get one of those. They would totally not be surprised either. They would be like, you would show up here with a knitted penis. You would. Because I would. I think I will. I will. I'm gonna find that. I'm gonna find one. I need one of those, actually.
Yeah. Or you just redirect them, tell them about this video, this interview, with John Adkison.
Definitely gonna
With a
talk.
mock
I've been
penis.
talking about it. I've been super excited about it, actually.
Uh,
So
Great.
it's nice to talk. It's nice to get it off your chest with somebody who knows what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and vice versa. And that it's like there's so many, but we're all so spread out.
Yeah.
that.
In some ways, I'm thankful for the pandemic, because maybe if it wasn't for this pandemic and Zoom didn't get so popular, maybe I wouldn't be doing these videos, because we get out and we protest and we talk amongst each other, or holding signs or whatever, but that's just between each other, right? It's not. It may, or we might have James on or someone taking video of us, whatever, and that might get uploaded to YouTube. But if it's just between us, it's not getting out there to the people that need to hear it and see it and all that. So with
Right. Well, and it
this,
shows connection too. I mean, it shows. I mean, we've been friends. I mean, for a while now,
yeah,
and so it just shows people, like this is a real thing. We've come together, and it's like our family and people that we know and can trust when it comes to this sort of thing. And like this is the whole thing. Come and join us. Like we're all here. We've all been here.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, it's great. All right. So you have any other thoughts about how this affects parents?
Nothing that I would have, you could go on all night, all day long.
Yeah,
You can go
yeah.
on and on and
I know.
on.
Yeah, yeah. And then the
No.
last psychological effect is on intact men. Right? Just
Okay.
because you're not cut doesn't mean that you're not psychologically affected by the fact that ritual genital cutting is occurring in the world. Especially if you have like buddies or whatever that, okay, I'm intact, my buddies are not. Kind of feel bad for them. I feel pity, or I feel shame because I'm cut, or I get bullied in school, or whatever, or I feel embarrassed. I need to hide my penis in the locker room because the other guys are cut, and
My
they might think
natural
I'm
penis.
ugly or
Yeah.
whatever. There's so much, and I even uh, Adam Ruins Everything.
Ah, yeah.
He talks about sex a little bit, and one of the things he says is that shame is a serious problem when it comes to sex, and that leads to all this dysfunction. And this is another area where shame happens. And if we could get rid of genital cutting in the world, that'd be one less thing to shame around sex.
Right. I agree. You don't see like females going around, or men, I guess I should say specifically. I mean, females too, but men, you don't see men going around talking about like disgusting intact vaginas. I mean, because
Yeah,
that's not a thing, because why would it be a thing?
yeah,
And so it's funny when you look at it, not really funny, but it's this like, you're like, you do realize,
yeah,
men and women both have foreskin. It's not like a, yeah. And
yeah.
I mean, if you're asking me, a female, and when we start talking about like labia and stuff and like
Hmm.
varieties and things like that, I've never ever heard anybody mention that before. So like when they come in with like a foreskin is gross thing, and you're like, you girl, stop. Stop.
Exactly. Meat flaps.
And they're like, wait, oh, whoa. You're like, light bulb,
Yeah.
whoa.
Arby's sandwich.
Yeah, yeah. See, and it's like, how do you like that? How do you like that? Like, I'm not offended by it, because I know where people are coming from when they say that. Like, I know what
Yeah.
that means, but it's like, so now you're seeing the similarities here, and
Hmm.
you're like, no, it doesn't even make sense. Arby's sandwich, like beef, what? That's so stupid. And
Yeah.
you're like, exactly.
Well, they've got labiaplasty. That's a very popular surgery in the United States. They try to reduce the amount of labia, and that's it's right, goes right along with FGM, because they remove the labia in certain types of female genital mutilation, and when it's done to little girls, and I don't know, Egypt or Somalia or whatever. So
And like, what it I would never do that. So like, it seems it doesn't do much, but like when I think about, if I were to have it removed, that would be a problem. Yeah, that would be a
well,
problem.
you think about it, the labia is something that's stretchy. It's kind of like you got the skin here on the penis, right? That moves and stretches when things get larger. The same thing with the vagina. When you're having a baby, the vagina is opening up. You need to have skin to allow that to open up, and that's why women that were severely cut, the type that involves removing all the labia, have troubles during birth because their vagina can't open up as much or they're going to tear because they don't have that labia to allow that stretching. I mean, you're going, from something that's, that small to, what is it, 10 centimeters or whatever,
Yeah.
for a baby's head to get
Huge.
through.
I
Yeah.
know it.
Yeah. So
And
that labia
nobody,
is needed.
it's needed. And I mean, it's it, just like a penis. It's like a wet organ. Like it's supposed to be wet. Without the
Yeah.
labia, that's not going to happen. There's no way. And it would do the same thing. It would
Yeah.
be irritated up against clothing and all these
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah. It
yeah, I mean,
blows my mind that they do that. But they don't make the connections. But again, it's over there in those cultures where it happens. They have the cognitive dissonance. They don't understand. They haven't taken the time to really understand how it's harming and all that. They think that they're better off for it. I
right.
don't know where they get that from, but
And they
that's
can't
where
even
they're.
imagine why you would ever cut a male type thing. They're like, well, we would cut females, but why would you cut a male? And
Yeah.
it's vice versa here. And
As I understand it, every place that does FGM, there's also MGM.
oh,
It's
okay.
never,
I've
it's
heard that.
never, it's never one without the other. So
Okay. So in the
Brian
case of
Earp
like,
actually talks about that too.
I love listening to like everything it's like, again, so simple, like very simple
Mhm.
things that seem so complicated when you don't know about them. But
Yeah.
like to be an ethicist is literally like the basic of human decency, like so very simple.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like you have to teach people that. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. He lays it out very well.
Yeah, he does. He does. I'm so excited for him and his wife to have baby.
Earp or are you talking about Maroda?
Oh, or I'm talking about Murata.
Yeah. Earp isn't, I don't think Earp is even married.
No,
Yeah.
that's right.
Maroda
I'm thinking about
has,
Murata.
yeah.
That's right.
Maroda
Still
got
happy for them
married
too.
and now they're expecting. Yes. In
Yes,
fact,
so happy for
I'm
them too.
interviewing, not an interview like this. He's starting a podcast and he's invited me to be on his podcast.
Oh,
I think
oh, that's
Tuesday
gonna
I'm
be
going to
great.
interview with him.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm honored.
Yes, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So yeah. So I think we covered all the psychological impacts, and we could probably go on and on and on, but we'll jump
Yeah.
into relationships next. Uh, Starting off with the child-parent trust. Uh, the idea that if a parent doesn't take the time to research or maybe even does research and still has their child cut, then how's it going to impact the relationship between the child and the parent? I mean, is the child going to continue? Is the child going to be able to trust that parent? How does the child feel toward that parent after that has happened? Whenever they figure it out, I've seen cases where teenagers got mad at their parents and called them out on it and all that, and um, yeah, fights.
Yeah. They think that they just tell their kids that they're crazy and that they have no reason to be upset and don't take
Yeah.
any this he's 16 or 17. This he pushes the carts in at Target where I work, and super
Uh,
nice kid, super great kid.
uh-huh.
And but I've hair in my mouth. I've talked to him about this before, and at first he was laughing about it, but I was like, he's young, and I was being as appropriate about it as possible, but I do talk to him often, so it wasn't too weird for me. But he was
Mhm.
like laughing, oh, it's weird. It's weird looking, isn't it? And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying anymore. I was like, just go to my
Yeah.
Instagram. Just go to my Instagram. I'm not saying anymore. And he did. The next day I saw him and he was like, oh, Sarah. He
Yeah.
was like, I had no idea. I even asked my mom about it. She got really mad at me. Why? And I was like, welcome to
Yeah.
a whole new,
Make sure you
world.
send them to arclaw.org.
Time to wear.
Arc Law, attorneys for the rights of the child. Stephen
Yes, yes,
Svoboda,
yes.
David Llewellyn, Peter Adler, those guys.
They're laughing and
Yeah.
then they're not laughing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he only has a small window of time if he wants to sue um, the
It has
hospital
to
or whatever.
be since kids born. Is it like kids born after a certain year or before a certain year or
No,
something like that?
it's more about the statute of limitations. Um, I don't really get why the statute of limitations applies this way, but because if they're thinking of it as a medical procedure, which I don't think it is, I think it's a ritual. But medical procedures, you have a statute of limitations on them, and it depends on the state you're in. But like 2 years is a common time frame that you have to sue over any kind of harm that happened from a medical procedure.
Mm.
And that clock starts ticking for you at 18, right? If it was something that happened
Oh.
while you were a child. So get connected with the ARC law or connect with the lawyer or whatever before you turn 18 and start putting together a case, start having that lawyer look up, the records or whatever. And then when they turn 18, file that lawsuit.
I briefly was aware about this, but now I know more. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. You might want to check out my blog, johnadkison.blogspot.com, because I filed a criminal complaint with the sheriff's office, which went to the Navy, Navy police or whatever, because I was born in the Navy. And then I filed a tort claim against the Navy, and they were like, "Well, you're past the 2-year thing." It's like, yeah, when it was 2 years, I was like 2 years old, so
Right.
so that
Right.
doesn't apply. Sorry. So they're like, "Well, take it up with the federal courts." So I went to the federal courts and filed a lawsuit. Ended up getting dismissed, but I didn't make it easy for them.
The case was still there. More people should do the same.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like even if it does fail, the point is made. We're all filing this lawsuit. So if you can't figure out a way to solve it, you better find a way, because you're going to have more of these.
Exactly. More and more are going to happen in the future. So you better stop doing this, at least in the military hospitals, at the very least.
Yeah. And it's why I always encourage people, like, to just write the doctor's office an email, even if it's hardly anything, even if it's just the yourwholebaby.org or just anything, because the more that keeps coming in, even it doesn't matter how much it is, the more that comes in, the more they're going to notice it, the more they're going to talk about it and say, people are sending us all these things. Like, it just keeps happening. You don't have to say anything. Just make it obvious that you're, pro genital autonomy, and it'll make a difference. It will, but just people need to be bombarding with stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, we're stuck in houses or whatever because of COVID. Call the hospitals and just say, "Hey, I want to file a complaint or whatever. Can you pass me on to the complaints office or whatever?" Or call clinics that advertise the procedure and say, I I gave one clinic a hard time. I was like, you better not call us back ever again. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, sorry.
You'll be hearing more from me and plenty of other people too.
Now you've heard that there are men that complain. So, this is on your mind now. I talked to probably 3 people before I finally got someone that, frankly just hung up the phone on me and told me, to piss off or whatever. It's like, well, at least there's a few people there that now know that there's men out here like me. They're not happy with this. So now when it's in their mind that when they're doing this or they're supporting it or they're participating in it, that baby might grow up to be just like this guy that was protesting in front of the office with bloodstained pants.
Yes.
There's one particular clinic in Olympia that I picked on it quite a bit.
Why is it always in Washington too? I feel like their rates have been declining like so much, or maybe because of stuff like this.
Yeah, I always wonder about the statistics and how to get to those statistics, because like in Washington, I think it's primarily not done in the hospitals because it's not covered by insurance companies much there, but it's done in clinics afterwards.
Okay. I was seeing that too. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not absolutely positive what the real percentages are there, but supposedly the whole West Coast and Nevada have really low numbers compared to like the East area, especially the Midwest and all that. So,
yeah. Okay.
So, and I think that's part of why a lot of the bloodstained men billboards are going up in places like Atlanta and certain states where the cut rates are a lot higher.
Yeah. Milwaukee. We need one in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's huge. Yes. But you were talking about Olympia. I got to hear this.
Yeah. So there's I was living south of Olympia, and there was this one pediatrician's office that clearly advertised it on his website. So I kind of picked on that one particular one because it was fairly close to home, and he did definitely advertise it, and I protested over and over and over again. And eventually, someone, one of the people came out and talked to me, and they were like, "Well, you're scaring some people there, and they're scared because of you or whatever." It's like, "Oh, good. They should be scared, but they should be scared of you."
Right. They're scared of the wrong person.
Yeah,
That's what the confusion is.
yeah.
You're
I
mad at
mean,
me, and I'm not the person you're supposed to be mad at
yeah. I'm
here.
just a messenger.
Right. I'm just telling you what you didn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So she got it. She got that. I was mad that I was cut and all that. So yeah.
It would be nice to have. I thought about just, I mean, anonymously sending, just get a list of hospitals,
Hmm.
just anonymously sending packets.
Yeah.
But it's not like, what do they do? Do they grab it and they're like, oh, Sally, look at what just came through the fax. Like, how does this go down? When they get it,
Who
what do they do
knows?
with it? Do they throw it
Yeah.
out? I want to
Yeah.
know. Do they look at it and they're like, what is this? And they're showing
Yeah.
everybody, which is what I hope they do.
Yeah. I think it makes more impact from if it's coming from men like me that are generally upset about it. It means something more. That's
Yeah.
why I'm not anonymous anymore. Ever since 2018, I decided, okay, I'm just going to be public about this and use my real name and all that. So
What is with that? So I didn't know. I've always been a public advocate. I didn't know actually until I started using Twitter, which was within the last few months because I never really understood Twitter.
mhm,
But I just started, being like, well, that's a whole nother platform I could be using. So I learned to use
mhm,
it. But anyway, that's how I learned that people hide their identity about this. I didn't know that.
mhm,
So I'm getting all this recognition, for being a public advocate. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't get it. Now I get it. And I didn't
yeah,
realize that what I was doing was like so gutsy.
mhm,
But I mean, now I do because a ton of people hate me for it, like that
yeah,
didn't hate me before, that loved me just fine before.
yeah.
So, I mean, now I get it, but I
People
do.
have lost their jobs over it. So
Yeah. And I'm seeing that too. I'm like, oh, somebody should have told me that. Luckily I have not had any issues as far as people showing up to my house or anything like that, or getting
yeah,
fired. Honestly, most people that I see, like, they don't tell me on Facebook or whatever, but at work, or they'll be like, hey, look, that's really great, all the things that you do, but
mm,
nobody wants to talk about it publicly. They only want to talk about it face to face with you, when nobody else hears,
yeah.
nobody else sees, or they don't talk about it. Yeah.
Yep, I kind of wonder if I'm gonna step out of my house one day and get egged or something like that.
I wonder about it too. I wonder
Yeah,
about it too, honestly. I feel
yeah,
like some people, it enrages people so much just for you simply saying that this is
yeah,
wrong, that they will hurt somebody
yeah,
again over
yeah.
it.
I made someone feel bad about the fact that they cut their child, or I made someone feel bad that they are cut or whatever. It's like I'm just a messenger, guys. I'm putting out a message to try to protect children. I'm not doing this to make you feel guilty. I'm cut myself, so you can't really think that I'm trying to make you
Right.
feel bad about your body. And I came this close to actually cutting my own son. So again, I'm not, trying to send shame out there to those who, did it without knowing. 'Cause
I
I
use
didn't
that
know.
analogy like it's like somebody going to take a piece of candy that you happen to know is poison. So
Mm,
you go and advise them, don't eat that candy. I'm taking this candy away. This candy is poison. You don't want this candy. Instead of getting mad at the person that poisoned the candy, they're
yeah,
getting
they
mad
get
at
mad at
you
you.
because you took it away. And that's probably one of my favorite ways to explain it to people,
Yeah,
or even to myself, just because it makes sense like that. It
yeah,
makes sense like that. They're getting mad at you for telling them, not the
yeah,
person who actually did it and is
yeah.
lying about it.
Shoot the messenger.
Right. Yep. Shoot the messenger. That's us.
Yeah.
Us terrible people.
Hmm. Fighting to protect children. So horrible.
Don't cut the penis. You're so perverted.
Yeah. It's like,
Oh yeah.
wait a second. What do and then they'll also say like, well, we won't watch that because it's biased. How do you know what you've learned so far in life hasn't been biased? How do you know that
Right.
everything else out there isn't biased?
Right. how do you know that just because you heard all the benefits of circumcision, did anybody mention to you any benefits of the foreskin
Yeah.
or just the benefits of the circumcision?
Yeah.
And you don't really actually think about that, because people are like, well, if I would have known there was a foreskin, I might have asked what the benefits of it were. So
Mhm.
that's a whole other thing too.
Yeah.
But the taboo around the foreskin in general, because people will tell you it's disgusting before they know what it is.
Yeah. All right. Hang on just a second.
That's okay.
No, keep it open a little. All right. Okay. I gotta get through this.
That's okay.
It's after 8 o'clock. We've been at it for a couple hours already. So yeah, we talked about the child-parent trust, and then there's also the co-parenting thing. We imagine you've also seen this. I've seen lots of cases where people have even gone as far as divorce over this one, thing. Um, you know, and Jessica and James Rigdon are a prime example where they're publicly out there. They've did interviews with James Owen and Jordan Norell on the what happened between the two of them when Jessica wanted to protect their son and James wanted to cut. And it took a lot to turn James around, and now he's out and running around with bloodstained man.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how that works.
Yeah. So yeah, these genital cutting rituals cause stress between partnerships.
Deal breakers for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So it would be really nice. I mean, that would be one last thing for us to fight about, right? If this wasn't happening
Right.
in the world.
Right.
And then we have the mother-child bond. There's the thinking about how the child needs to have skin contact with the mother afterwards and breastfeed and all that stuff. Not be carried away and have it, have part of its genitalia cut off and then brought back and deal with that trauma and the pain and all that, and then not be able to, breastfeed. There's plenty of stuff out there about how it affects breastfeeding.
And the colicky thing too, which I had mentioned before, or just noted that my son was pretty colicky and was not a breastfeeder. So I always say I can't imagine how much worse that would have probably have been had he been cut. Yeah.
Interesting. And then we have multiple theories about how all of this genital cutting, all the ritual genital cutting in the world, not just males, but how it all contributes to pedophilia. Right.
Right.
One of the things I've thought about is how underage marriages, forced marriages that occur, with little girls, seems to only happen in cultures where genital mutilation is also very common. You look at Russia or South America, and I'm pretty sure they don't do, this forced marriage, underage marriage thing where they, sell their daughters off to older men or anything like that. Right.
Right. Muslims, I have a Muslim friend at work, a Muslim female friend, and she's breaking out. She's breaking out as we speak.
Oh yeah.
So it's been very interesting to talk to her. Yes. I love having conversations
Nice.
with her. Yeah.
That's great. That's great that you guys
Yeah.
can talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
Another thought that I've had, like, it kind of dawned on me one day. It's like, well, it's very common for people to talk about, needing to have tight vaginas, because that's what guys like. Is it what guys like, or is it what cut guys like? I don't know for sure, but the thought is if the guy is missing a good chunk of his sensitive tissue and maybe his head, his glands getting desensitized over time because of keratinization and everything, all he has left is pressure, right? That's squeezing, and that's why you hear things about women doing their Kegels or whatever to satisfy their men better. And the thinking is that young women have tighter vaginas. Thus, older men are attracted to young gals. Okay.
Which is not true because really, if a female is, like turned on by you, aroused by you, your vagina actually loosens.
Mm-hmm.
you know, so like, and it's like, it's a total like perverted thing because like, first of all, your reasoning is like weird, like, and like your idea of how the vagina works is also wrong.
Mm,
So like, it just proves that it's just like a perverted thing.
mm, okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's a theory. So yeah.
Oh, well,
And
it goes, I feel like, I mean, we don't have to talk about all this, but like the idea of like shaved genitals because new
mm,
babies are the only type of people that are hairless on the genitals. So it's like that. It's like a whole thing.
yeah.
Perversion runs so deep, like
Yeah. It is.
everywhere around here. Yeah. So
I
yeah.
I even heard reports how some nurses would talk about how the man that was doing the cutting would get an erection while he was cutting. It's
And that's not uncommon too, apparently.
uh, yeah,
But I believe it. I do
grosses
believe
me
it.
out, but
Yeah.
yeah, uh, maybe if we weren't doing all these general cutting things in the world, maybe that'd be one. Maybe that would reduce the pedophilia in the world. I don't know. You know, I
I
know
agree.
a lot of people absolutely hate pedophiles. I mean, some parts of the country, I know it's like, pedophile, lynch them. That's the attitude.
People don't like that.
Yeah,
Rightfully so. Yeah.
yeah. So, then there's the doctor-patient relationship. We chatted about that earlier a little bit. Personally, I couldn't have a doctor that um, supported this or promoted it, or definitely much less actually did it.
Agree.
Actually,
Agree.
and wasn't didn't feel bad about it or something.
Yeah, I agree.
And then there's the friends and family relationships that a lot of us intactivists, we lose connections with their friends and family. Friends and family unfriend us on Facebook or Instagram. I got blocked by one family member on Instagram.
Oh,
He didn't want to have a chat with me about it, so he just blocked me. Um, yeah, so friends and family will this will create a chasm between friends and family because of different thoughts on this topic.
yeah. It definitely makes things awkward, and I've also noticed with that a lot of the family who did have something to say about it, which usually wasn't in support of, but who did say something about it over Facebook, and then I see them in person and they act like it doesn't happen because people cannot they cannot stand to talk about it. It like they can't stand to talk about it in person, especially. They just will avoid it at all costs. They will not have anything to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, then the next major section is about FGM. FGM. We can even discuss intersex connectivity here, but when I've dug into the causes of intersex and the causes of FGM, there you got to YouTube and look for a playlist called from Clitoria Nipples about FGM, female circumcision. And there's a whole bunch of videos that are basically documentaries from different places in the world that perform different forms of FGM at different ages. There's a whole lot more variety when it comes to female genital cutting that goes on in the world. But what's common is the excuses. They come up with the same excuses as we do for male genital cutting. And same thing with intersex. There's a lot of the same excuses. It's like, well, we're worried that he's going to be bullied in school, or he, she, or they, or whatever will be bullied when they're in school, or they're not going to be able to find a sexual partner. Um, and all this stuff is not true. I mean, there's plenty of stories about intersex people that find partners. There's the idea that females won't be able to find partners is just because of a cultural thing. Um, and it also ties to economics. Here in the U.S., it's really tied to economics. The female, the male genital cutting is tied to the doctors and hospitals making money from it. The KY jelly or the lubrication companies, sex lube companies making money from selling that stuff, the pharmaceuticals from selling the Viagra, and the cosmetics companies from selling Skin Medica from with Oprah or or the stuff that gets injected in the cheeks and stuff like that. Like Sandra Bullock got her penis facial. So there's money in that, but there's also money that keeps things going when it comes to female genital cutting. It's maybe not necessarily cash, but it's like, well, the family needs to feed themselves, so they trade goats or whatever to sell their daughter to get goats. And in order to sell their daughter, the daughter has to be cut right before they. Oh, you didn't know this? Yeah. So the deeper you go on all this, it's like the more you see how it's all tied together. All this general cutting rituals are all tied together with the same roots, and that's why you've probably seen my my weed that I share, right? You see the 3 leaves of the weed. You got male circumcision, you got intersex, like normalization surgeries, and you got FGM. 3 different weeds, but when you look down at the roots, the same roots. And really, it comes down to one thing, really, control. But you have control and economics, and I don't remember what the third one was right now, but it's all the same roots that apply to all 3 of those. And we have to pull this weed by its roots. You don't go just yank one leaf off and think that it's going to go
It'll go
away.
back. Yeah.
It's never going to come back. No, it's probably as the thinking is that as long as male genital cutting lives on, female genital cutting will live on too. So we have to fight it all together as one. And I often show pictures of people doing protests for the 3 different kinds of cutting, and it's like, well, if we were to combine all 3 of these groups of people into one that says genital autonomy, genital autonomy, genital autonomy for everyone, how much bigger would we appear?
That's very true. Yeah, definitely. I mean, and people's like, the people will and do their thing differently and say like, well, MGM is way worse. And
Hmm.
so, and it happens more frequently, which I mean, we can all agree with, but at the end of the day, they're all wrong. It's all
Yeah.
wrong. All of it's wrong. All of it's
Yep.
wrong.
Yeah. Ethically, it's the same, right? It's
Right.
non-therapeutic, non-consensual. Ethically, that's the same. So, and it doesn't need to be a pissing contest. I mean, why is it important to compare? What good is that going to do anyone by comparing who's the bigger victim? I don't see that
Right.
it's going to do anyone any good. And I think that as long as we are divided on this, it's it reduces what we can be doing. I think the worry for a lot is that if they include MGM, then that's going to reduce the progress on FGM, and I don't think that's the case. I really don't.
Yeah. I feel like the only thing I could think of would be like for like if I were to use that reasoning, the reason that I use like male genital cutting more is simply because people can relate to it.
Hmm.
As in like they know so many everybody knows males that are circumcised, everybody does.
No.
But at the same time, everybody is just as appalled, like I mean, they are appalled at female cutting and
Yeah.
not, so it's like, well, if you're using female cutting as your example, yes, they're going to be appalled by it, but they were already appalled by it, so you're not teaching them anything different, and trying to say, well, it's the same thing as male genital cutting, male circumcision, same thing. And it seems like people can't like link the two together. They just cannot put them in the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it comes down to cognitive dissonance. It's really hard to
Yeah.
process that in the head. So,
Yeah. The different approaches we take, I feel like it's a lot of trial and error because
mhm.
we still have not yet come up with a way to do this where it reaches people without them freaking out at us. There really
Oh,
is just no way to do it. It really is however it works best for you, because the
yeah.
person that you're talking to, the way they react is going to be completely random also.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of worry, amongst fellow advocates for genital autonomy that if we're too aggressive or whatever, they're going to walk away from the conversation. I'm not too concerned about that,
me either.
because yeah, they might walk away. I've seen plenty of cases where they walk away. fuming or whatever, or like disgusted with us or whatever, it's like at least they're walking away knowing someone gave them some information, knowing that there's people out here speaking out against it, and chances are they're going to continue to think about it.
Yeah.
Whereas if we didn't approach them at all, then they might not ever think about it, right?
Or, I mean, I think about it if of course, you go based off the situation. I'm gentle plenty of times, and as just as much as I am aggressive. But like, I feel like if you are angry, why should you hold back? I mean, nobody's like, oh, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I was raped. I mean, I don't want to hurt your feelings, and that's literally what you're doing. Like, by being so gentle, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but this is as bad as we say it is. So yeah, we are this angry. So I get both sides. It's like you want to be gentle so that they listen, but
Yeah.
you're not getting the point across. Then the point
Yeah.
is we're fucking pissed. Like this can't happen anymore.
Well, that's why I like having teams of us working together, because we have different perspectives, and you just look at some of my interviews that I've been having. Everyone has it's coming from a different place on this issue. They're all everyone's pro genital autonomy, but they
And how
understand
they
it from a different view.
right.
And
Right.
and like, yeah, I'm definitely pro getting that gentle information out there too. But if you only get the gentle information and you don't hear from angry men, or you don't see the angry men, then they might not believe it, or it might not trigger them enough to say, okay,
Remember it.
or to think, okay, well, they might say, well, okay, well, maybe that's not necessarily good, but they won't necessarily see the bad. Right? It won't
Right.
it won't
Right.
swing them enough to say, okay, well, we really need to stop this. Or
Right.
maybe they'll go middle ground or on the fence or whatever. It's like, okay, I'm neither pro or con. But getting the angry men in front of their face to see, yeah, they're angry and they have good reason to be angry. Hopefully, that'll swing them to pro genital autonomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Did we talk a little bit about the word anti-circumcision?
No, you mentioned that you don't like that word. I'm
Yeah.
assuming I know where you're going to go with this as far as like the consent, um, like a people should consent. Like you should be anti. I mean, people
Yeah.
can do, but I don't know. They shouldn't do it though.
Well, first of all, the word circumcised just means to cut in a circle, right? And when you look at the Latin roots, that's all it really means. It was adopted as a euphemism, right? It's like incision is to cut into, circumcision is to cut in a circle. That's all it means. It was adopted. Again, though, that's the word that people know, so that's the word we have to keep on using to try to, you have to meet people
Relate.
where they stand. Now, the people that think of circumcision as, they've got it stuck in their head that that's good, and they have the anti in front of it. It's like someone that's against good. So they're automatically against us because we're anti-circumcision. So I usually prefer to use the term pro-genital autonomy. That really messes with their heads. Right?
That makes sense though. Okay. Okay.
Right? Because, good, and that sounds really good. It's like,
True.
okay.
How can you be mad at that?
Yeah.
There's like no anger attached to that word. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That's a good way to look at it.
It's kind of a, if you study marketing, the marketers use certain words to try to manipulate you into thinking, hey, this product or whatever is a great thing, right?
They tell you never use the word never.
Yeah. Or I one of my biggest pet peeves is, it's only $1.99. It's like, just say it's $2.
Oh, only.
Don't insult me with this only crap.
Yeah, right.
Oh, here's a penny. Okay, now it's $2.
Yeah. I know it. Marketing is a funky deal. When we need to market this, we need to find a way to market this. The billboards, though, those are great. I love the billboards. It's great.
Yeah, people might be responding those same way to those billboards. I don't know. We've seen some tweets about it and all too, but
oh yeah, you see a lot of that, and I still You know, even them posting about it and talking about it, because, you know, we'll find it. So then we'll be on the post, you know, and so
Yeah.
you I don't know, is it just me? I feel like I keep saying, like, I feel the momentum, but I'm like manifesting this, you know, like I'm
Mhm.
manifesting and manifesting, and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel the momentum, but I do. How don't you? How don't I? I mean, I feel like I see it everywhere now, especially with these
Yeah.
billboards going up more and more people talking about it. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I keep seeing new tweets every day from
Yes.
totally new people I haven't seen before speaking out against this. It's like awesome. And I just keep adding them to my genital autonomy list. So it's like make that list
Yes.
nice and big.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then the very last item on the list is about social productivity. Now, of course, if you took all the moils and the doctors or butchers or whatever you want to call them, and they stopped doing this ritual genital cutting in the world, what would they be spending their time on instead? Maybe something more productive and valuable to the world, to society? Maybe, solving cancer or fixing COVID or
There would
growing
be
plants for food.
there would be more rooms, like hospital rooms. I mean, like with all the things we're
Yeah,
talking about, it's just it frees up so many things, so many more things beyond the hospital to just stop doing it. Like if tomorrow they stop doing it, there would be like a breath of fresh air, because so many things would change. They just would.
yeah,
Men's literal behavior and personality would be different moving forward, knowing that this isn't allowed anymore, and like this is put to an end, and like healthy males moving forward, without this trauma,
yeah,
and all that. So it would be very life changing.
yeah. And
Totally.
advocates like you and I, instead of talking about this, who knows what we'd be talking about or what we might be solving in the world instead.
I think about that too. What happens when this is banned? Because it will get banned.
Yeah.
And what happens then?
Yeah. What do I do with my
We
time now?
we can celebrate the rest of the time. All
Yeah.
the time we would spend educating people, we could spend celebrating that we don't have to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be, I wake up every day celebrating.
I would too. I would
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So, all right, Sarah. So that's the end of the list. Unless you have any other ideas or thoughts you want to add to this.
No, I mean, no, because I'm done talking for the night. I
It's
would,
been a
I
long
would,
talk.
I would go on forever, you know.
I
So,
hear you.
but it was definitely super great to finally talk to you. I talk to you all the time. It's so nice to finally see faces and hear
Yeah.
voices of people that I've been connected with for quite a while now, into some serious business. So I really appreciate you talking
Yeah.
with me, John. Yeah.
I'm gonna be sure to plug Bloodstained Men on the tweet about this video. You got the T-shirt on. That's awesome.
Definitely.
Okay, well, I'll see you around on social media land.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.